never know when that opportunity might present.
Absolutely.
Sit down in front.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the business meeting of the Scott County Fiscal Court for the 25th of July. We'll call this meeting to order. Appreciate you being here with us. I'd like to ask you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Let us pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We've got a full agenda tonight, and I appreciate you being here. And just a little housekeeping before we get started. There are 2 items on the agenda that might want to have some merit, some public comment. So what we will do is prior to that item on the agenda, I will call for public comment and allow anyone that would like to speak 4 minutes and move through the agenda that way. So please know that your voice is valued and always want to have an opportunity for public comment. So we will move from there. Before we call the roll, I do want to ask you all to consider joining me in a moment of silence in honor of a young man that lost his life this weekend, 12-year-old Russ Bourget. And I bring it up because it's very tragic, but story was shared that he had created a list this summer about life goals and what he wanted to do. And one of the things he wanted to do was donate 10 outfits to the Amen House and then donate $5,000 to the homeless. The Fiscal Court has been very involved with several nonprofits in the community, but Amen House has been a major nonprofit partner with us. Yesterday is a blessing. They did a groundbreaking for a new food pantry that we helped them with through the process with a CDBG grant. And the work the Amen House does is phenomenal. But this young man was wise beyond his years, and one of his desires was to support the Amen House. So I would ask everyone to consider some type of donation to the Amen House in Russ's memory. So with that said, would you join me in a moment of silence for Russ? Thank you. Ms. Hamilton, would you call the roll?
Mr. Hostetler.
Present.
Mr. Jones. Mr. Wallace.
Here.
Mr. Corman.
Present.
Mr. Ellison.
He's on.
Mr. Pratt.
Here.
Mr. Livingston. Mr. Culbertson.
Here.
Judge Covington.
Thank you, present. With that said, we will consider the first item, minutes from our previous meeting. Those minutes were shared by email. Any questions or comments related to those minutes?
Motion.
Motion from Kelly, second from Rob Jones. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Transfers as presented. Any questions or comments? Motion from Mr. Pratt, second from Mr. Wallace. Any other comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Bills and hand checks as presented. Any questions or comments?
Motion.
Motion from Mr. Hostetler,
Second.
second from Mr. Jones. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. That brings us to number 7, and would like to ask Senator Thayer, who is here tonight, to share an update on legislative funding and present a check. These are always good things, and we are indebted to Senator Thayer's service for over 20 years. He has represented Georgetown and Scott County and has allowed us to really outdo or outcarry our weight, I would say. But we appreciate what you've done and not finished doing. You're still going to work through the end of December.
Not that anyone's counting.
Yeah, but I'll turn it over to you, Senator.
Thank you, Judge Covington, members of the court, citizens of Scott County. Thanks for the opportunity to address you tonight. Judge, thanks for letting me go before the public comment period. You know, my days of public comment are almost over. Maybe 5.5 months from now, I'll be part of the public commenters. We'll see. We had a great legislative session that finished up back in April, and it was a real victory for Scott County. And I'll share with you something that's been relatively consistent during my almost 22 years as Scott County's senator. There are a lot of legislators who wish they lived in and represented a place like Scott County. We are very, very blessed and fortunate to live here, and the fact that we have such growth, and which can be challenging, I know, for you all to deal with at times. There are a lot of places around Kentucky who would love to have the challenges that you all are faced with. And we're very fortunate to live here, and I feel blessed and honored to have been called the senator from Scott for the last 22 years. When I was sworn in 2003, I became the first Scott County since 1964 to represent this county in the state Senate. We'd had senators from Harrison County and Woodford County and surrounding counties. But I feel pretty certain that due to the population growth and the redistricting map that I've been able to help draw, that long after I'm gone, the 17th district is going to be represented by someone from Scott County, and as we continue to grow, as reflected in the changes in the redistricting map, and that the nominees of the two major parties are both from here. So I'm happy with that legacy, but there's a lot of other things I'm happy about too, and a lot of it starts and ends with Blacktop. We had a really fantastic session when it came to the road plan, and what I've found, even though there sometimes is a little bit of envy from my fellow legislators about the growth we're experiencing here and the allocations and appropriations we're able to get in the road plan, there is no lack of understanding about why we require constant expansion of our roads, changes in entrances and exits to roads, which I'm going to talk about in a second, and new roads altogether. One of my proudest accomplishments was the completion of the bypass. When I was first elected, it ended at Western Elementary and picked up again at US 25. And I worked through multiple administrations, Democrat governors, Republican governors. I've worked with Representative Quarles, Representative Tackett, Representative Hoffman, Representative Pratt throughout those years to get those last two sections of the bypass done. And now when you look at the new school, that would have never been able to happen without that bypass. So really proud of that, but that was just the beginning. I couldn't have imagined the growth 22 years ago that we continue to experience, although we had a pretty good idea it was coming. And so we were able to land over nearly $19 million in the road plan for the next 2 years. Of course, state of Kentucky operates on a fiscal year that starts July 1 and goes through June 30th. So we just began the 2025 fiscal year, and the key is to get money in the budget that is allowed to be spent during the next 2 fiscal years, the one that began just a couple weeks ago. So included in the biennium for Scott County for various stages of planning, designing, obtaining rights of way, utility work, and then finally construction of various roads and bridge projects includes $8.75 million to improve capacity and access on the connector road in Magistrate Corman's district, not far from where I live. That, of course, is from Highway 460 to US 62. And if you drive over there frequently or live over there like I do and drive on that road about 6 times a day, you know that that road wasn't designed for the volume of traffic and the ingress and egress from the various businesses and apartment complexes and housing developments. So there, that was one of the last things I wanted to make sure I got done before I leave office, was to make sure that that project was fully funded so that that can be improved. On I-64, over $3.5 million to improve I-64 from mile point 67 to mile point 71. So that's over on the southwest corner of Scott County, leading up to and right after exit 69 there on that side of I-64. This was a big one, and I couldn't have done it without the help of Representative Pratt, who was out of town and couldn't be here tonight, otherwise he'd joined me for this check presentation. $2.7 million to improve safety and traffic flow at the intersection of Highway 62, US Highway 62, Paynes Depot Road, Highway 421, which is Leestown Road, and Weisenberger Mill Road, which is in Magistrate Wallace's district. And if you drive out on that part of Scott County, you know how dangerous it's become out there. With growth comes more traffic, and it's a hazard, there's no doubt. Representative Pratt was an absolute bulldog on this project. The road plan always starts in the House, so if something gets inserted in the House, all I have to do is hold it when it gets to the Senate. It makes my job a lot easier. And Representative Pratt was able to get that in there. And it's a new project, and it's very difficult to get a new project that hasn't gone through the program like all these other projects that have been teed up for years. Very difficult. And so hats off to Representative Pratt for getting that done. And Magistrate Wallace has been a strong advocate for that project, as well as several residents. I used to live out on that side of town and used to take that road every day and into Lexington. And I know how dangerous it is now, and their help is on the way. Help is on the way. More than $2.4 million for 2 county bridge projects, $1.7 million for the bridge project on Hinton Road, which I think I heard is already underway or getting close. And then over $1.6 million for a bridge replacement project on Lemons Mill Road. And then a project that Magistrate Elliston has been advocating for. Again, another one that Representative Pratt and I were able to get included in the road plan, a new one. And this relates back to the new bypass. $710,000 to build 2 new entrances to the new Scott County High School. And if you've been out there, you know that there's an entrance on Long Lake Pike and there's an entrance on the Georgetown bypass. History suggests that all new entrances to schools are reimbursed by the Transportation Cabinet, but there seemed to have been a little bit of confusion with the current administration, who didn't want to play ball on reimbursing the Scott County School District. No surprise there. The legislature came to the rescue, and we put the money in there to make sure that, as every other new school entrance, including the one to Great Crossing when it was built, that the state government road plan will reimburse Scott County schools for that $710,000. So many thanks to Magistrate Ellison for his help on lobbying for that. There are, I have a check presentation to make, but there are actually some projects that affect Scott County that aren't reflected in this check. You all, if you travel east on 460 to Paris, you know about that project. You know that it's a Bourbon and Scott County project, and it starts in Bourbon County, and they're pretty well along out there. But now it's time for the Scott County section. And in the Bourbon, it's listed under the road plan as Bourbon/Scott. There's $7.5 million for construction in the biennium, and then there's money in the out years outside of the biennium that we authorized the Transportation Cabinet to be able to draw down from once they start construction. So they're going through right-of-way acquisition and the movement of utilities now, or should be soon, and sometime during this biennium, look for a major construction project on 460, and that goes from I-75 all the way out to Russell Cave Road. So that's a big deal, another $15 million for Scott County. And then during redistricting a few years ago, I picked up 11 Fayette County precincts. We split up Scott County between 6 Republicans who touch it: Madison, Clark, Bourbon, Scott, etc., Woodford, and then Senator Reggie Thomas represents the Lexington core inside New Circle Road. So think of the spokes outside New Circle, and there are 6 of us who represent sections of Lexington. So that meant I got to advocate for one priority project in Fayette County. And even though the district I represent is over Leestown Road, think Masterson Station and down to Keeneland, I was able to pick a project that was a priority for me in Fayette County. And I picked the one that benefits Scott County the most, and that is US 25 from Ironworks to Spur Road. And we know there are thousands of people every day who traverse that road into Lexington and back for work and shopping and dining and other purposes, and it's too narrow for that traffic volume. And it's very expensive because the land acquisition portion of it is, you've got all that farmland there, and then you've got 2 bridges that have to be replaced, a bridge over I-75 and then the railroad bridge. I mean, this is going to be big money. It's going to cost more to acquire the land than it will be to widen the road. But we broke it up into 2 segments, so there are tens of millions of dollars in the Fayette County portion of the road plan that will widen that section of road from Ironworks to Spur Road, and that's going to be a positive for Scott Countyans, despite what you may have read in the editorial page of the Georgetown News Graphic. This is a good project that will reduce the number of accidents. Just ask the owner of Red State Barbecue how many times his restaurant has been run into by a stray car or vehicle on US 25. So very happy with that. Outside of the road plan, you all know about the $7 million that was appropriated for Georgetown Municipal Water and Sewer Service. I presented that check to City Council last month, and that's going to allow Chase Acevedo and the folks over there to work on several different water and sewer projects within the service area. And that comes on top of money that was appropriated to build a new water storage tank in Magistrate Wallace's district. So we've had some good help. Again, my colleagues understand that when you have growth, you're going to have more needs for water and sewer. So I was happy to get that in there. Really proud yesterday, and I want to rise to a point of personal privilege to thank the Fiscal Court. I was able to get $500,000 in the budget 2 years ago to help with property acquisition for the Amen House, and I want to compliment and thank this Fiscal Court for matching the state's contribution to the Amen House of $500,000. The city did $2 million. That allowed them to purchase the HMS Motorsports location, and then you helped with the CDBG grant paperwork that allowed them to get the money to build the building. It's a tremendous partnership between local, state, and federal government because the CDBG dollars come from the federal government. That's a really big deal and transformative for our community. And as I said yesterday, food insecurity and food security it's not a partisan issue. It's not a bipartisan issue, it's a nonpartisan issue, and we should all work together, as we've done here, to lift up those who are disadvantaged when it comes to food security. One final note about a major project that affects Scott County, the Kentucky Horse Park. We benefit tremendously from the location of one of the most popular tourist attractions in Kentucky. 200 acres of it are in Scott County, the rest of it in Fayette. And the horse park's starting to show its age, and we have to compete for competitions with privately owned horse parks in Florida and North Carolina and places like that where they operate with a for-profit motive. So on top of the $15 million we were able to appropriate 2 years ago, and if you go out to the horse park, you can see a number of new barns that have been completed with that appropriation. Another $36 million for the Kentucky Horse Park to renovate the restaurant, for more new barns and stalls, renovation of the entertainment facilities, $5 million to upgrade the campground sites and bathhouses. That's one of the most popular publicly owned campgrounds in Kentucky. They've get $3 million for their maintenance pool, and then $5 million to renovate the International Museum of the Horse. So that also is an important investment for Scott County. You see the horse people when you're out and about town. You know, you see them in their riding boots and their riding pants. They're coming into our restaurants. They're shopping at our grocery stores. They're buying gas. They're staying at our hotels. We receive you could ask Lori Saunders. I'm sure she has a number for this, but the tourism effect, the positive tourism effect from not only the competitors but also the visitors to the horse park for this community is enormous. And so I was happy to go to bat along with Representative Pratt, who deserves a lot of credit also for the good work we did. I mean, in the legislature, it takes a House member and a Senate member to make things happen for their home districts. I wish he could be here today, but I know he's traveling back from an out-of-town conference, and I thank him very much as well. And I want to thank the citizens of Scott County who have allowed me to serve on their behalf for nearly 22 years. It's been an honor and a privilege, and I look forward to, on January 1st, returning to my status as citizen there. Thank you for the opportunity tonight, and I'd love to present a check to the fiscal court for $18 million plus for these road projects for the next biennium.
Thank you, Senator Fate. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I want to say this real quick. Senator Thayer, it kind of just started, I think it was about 2004 and 2005. And I sit down and talk with him about Connector Road and getting a traffic study for that area. And that's how long it takes. But he saw the project all the way through to where we can now, and they made some small improvements since then, but we can now come to fruition and see that all the way through. So look, I appreciate it when you started it back in, and we sat over in a restaurant. It wasn't even Galvin's then, but and got this, talked about it, and here we are.
What was the name of it back then? I can't even remember.
But I appreciate.
Memory's the first thing to go.
Yeah, that's exactly. But I appreciate it.
Let's take a quick
And
picture.
it goes to show you how long it takes for some of these projects to come to fruition, which is why it's such a big deal that we were able to get these two new projects in 1 year.
20 years, yeah.
Stamping Ground, Dubby's Barbershop. I'll never forget it with you. With you when you were mayor.
Yes, sir.
Don't try to cash this.
Michelle, you gotta catch that.
Give this to the treasurer. Give the treasurer.
Thank you all.
So that'll lead us to number 8, just let the record reflect that the annual salary schedule has been shared, and that just needs to be in the minutes. And then number 9, Strand and Associates Agreement Legacy Trail presentation. I'm going to, for a point of request, to respect a request from Chelsea, I'm going to move somebody up ahead of you. That was our next one. But Mr. Beatty from Branstad Carroll is here and made a request that a member of their group needed to attend another function, so we will allow you to present information related to our item down at, let's see here, which one is it? 17, our EMS project update related to the unsuitable soils claim. And we all have talked about this previously. We've had some discussion, some data, but this is just a presentation about the claim, the verification process of it. Jordan Haney's here from Thoroughbred, and then our colleagues from Marilla are here as well. Thank you all for being here. So, Ian, I'll turn it over to you.
Judge, for support, I appreciate it. I apologize for the people that I'm cutting in front of. We'll make it as quick as we can. We were here a few months ago discussing the unsuitable soils and the extreme moisture that site has been collecting over the years it's been sitting over there. And at that time, we had asked for, I think, upwards to $84,000 for a gravel backfill material that we could utilize to build that building pad in lieu of trying to continue to turn the dirt. The overall work, the contractors turned the dirt while they were continuing to excavate from different test pits, different areas. Thoroughbred was doing different areas and different testings, trying to determine what was going to be usable, what wouldn't be usable. So the pad is there, as everybody can see now, finally. It's a combination of dirt and gravel backfill. The contractor turned in their T&M tickets for wasting the soils on site, turning the soils, excavating the different pits, initially through various iterations of that, it got upwards to $191,000. That does include the 80 something that we'd asked for previously. Through negotiations with Marilla's work with their subcontractor, confirmation through the quantities and things through Thoroughbred, we've been able to get that down to the 141 that we presented to you guys for approval. And that again is overage for just continuing to deal with the soils and not delay the project while we were looking at the alternatives of putting in the gravel. So we're comfortable with the presentation of the values, everybody's cooperation to get it there, and that's why we've presented it. And there's representatives from every end. And just so everybody's aware, you all have a contract with us, you have a contract with Marilla, and you have a contract with Thoroughbred. Thoroughbred is the independent testing agent. They don't work for any of us. They work directly for you. So their review, their words really helped us get through this negotiation and support the claims and, you know, balance out the use of the tax dollars for that.
So what questions would anyone have? Rick Hostetler.
So what will this, excuse me, the timeline, where are we at for?
They've asked for 45 days, basically.
As a part of this?
And they spent longer than that doing it. I think they're probably eating some of that time, but that's what they've asked for with their claim.
And the reality is that it rained and rained and rained, and now it's dry. And it's Mother Nature. And Jordan Haney and Thoroughbred, their staff's out there constantly. And Jordan, if you want to have any comment, but unless there's any questions for Jordan, your staff's there, and you verified the documentation. You all have any comment additional you'd like to share other than what Ian has? No. Thank y'all for being here. Chad Wallace.
Yeah. So the composite that Thoroughbred, you all were overseeing that to make sure it gets to whatever the makeup is to your all's liking. So they're just basically doing the work, and they want you all are the ones that are setting up the foundation and how they got it. So, I mean, it's just something we have to deal with.
Yeah, and then, you know, they say about free land, and that thing has been a drainage swale probably from the farm that it was before Toyota bought the land. So that area has just been collecting water. They cut it open. It rained continually. They were trying to dry it in the rain. They moved it. They went to higher areas and tried to get more dirt. The whole area was just essentially a saturated raw material mess. It had organics in it, which are tree branches and things that can't be used as a building pad. Gotcha. So through the long and the short, the pad is there. It's to the integrity that it needed to be for the, you know, a 75-year building, which is that type of life that we expect out of a public safety facility. So we're comfortable that with the team's effort that we've got it to where it needs to be.
Any other questions? Rob Jones.
So I'm just trying to understand, but like testing before we started the project, was there any testing done that we could have noticed this a little quicker?
Jordan, you want to ask that? I know there were core drilling tests
That's what I
for the
thought.
building
I
pad.
thought
There
we had some
were.
core drilling done, but-
The difficulty with core drilling is they're roughly $3,500 to $4,200 a piece, and it's about a 4-inch hole, 6-inch hole. So we could do 1,000 of them and spend a couple $1 million, and we can do 10 and see what we can hit with a 6-inch hole. So I think that was done to determine. I think it was some unsuitable soils were encountered during that, but I don't think anything to the point. And then once it was opened up again, the weather,
Yeah, I know the weather
rain
played a
after
lot
rain
in it
after
too,
rain,
but,
and they can't, like,
you talk about the tree branches and stuff like that, just seems like we would have picked that up on our core drilling more.
again, it depends on how much you want to spend up front. A lot-
Do we have a number on that,
We're
how
not talking
much we
like
did?
these trees, it's more like sticks
Yeah.
and those kind
Yeah.
of things, so,
Was there a number we did on the core drilling, or?
I think we did 10 or
10, I think
No, I think we actually did 20.
20.
Yeah, something like that out there.
So it was a compromise of what it is, but again, it's a 4-inch hole. You don't hit that. We're doing a project in Jeffersontown. Thank goodness we're not doing that here. 10 core drills in the footprint of that building, and we still had $1 million worth of rock removal. That it just didn't hit
I
the
understand
areas that
that
should have
part.
been.
The part I'm struggling with is having to pay all the extra cost. When, I don't know, we couldn't tell from the core drilling that we was gonna have to add this much rock, or?
Well, I mean, the idea was, I can say that. When we were out there, we drilled it in November. It was wet, even when we drilled it. And our recommendations even outlined that, hey, there's gonna be some saturated soils. Then we opened it up in December, which is probably the worst time of year to try to get started with earthwork. So then we fought the rain, and that was most of what, we were 8-10% over optimum moisture. And so to get something stable to come up off of, we just kept having to dig down, which is where most of the time was spent, and then the backfill to counteract that so that we had the stable building pad to set the building on.
And again, they were going to other areas, working dirt by turning it over, trying to get some
Yeah, I remember
exposure,
that.
trying to get other dirt to dry as well.
Yeah.
So it's not just dirt from the building pad, it's exploratory as well.
Yeah.
And, a project like this, we want to get this project done because it positively impacts the safety of our community with having that station out there, and it will impact response times across the community. And we want to get it done, but we want to get it done right. And, we elected to move forward hoping that we would have that window to get it in, but the window never appeared. So.
And as a Scott County resident, I'm really cautious about what we're doing with taxpayer money.
Yeah.
So, the alternative from the attempts that we had them trying to do was walk away from it until we had better weather, and that's not beneficial to the duration of the project as well. So, in the grand scheme of things, it's not comfortable to sit here and say we, spent this kind of money moving dirt, but it's what was needed to keep the project moving.
Any other questions?
So do you foresee going forward then, if the court approves this, so the sites, we should have no more issues?
I believe, and I'll have to let Marilla, I believe all the cutting, and they're actually doing some finish grade around the perimeters of the site. The retention basins in and backfilled, so the majority of the disruption to the site is over, and we're coming out of the ground with the building, so I don't foresee, any unforeseen materials being an issue. I'm not gonna promise it's the last discussion of any change orders, but it'll be the last discussion of a large, significant.
Yeah, so the building pad's ready?
Yeah, I know they were working on, you're working on scheduling the slab.
We're pouring the first of the slab this Saturday, and we look to have that slab completed by Wednesday.
So basically the building is got a location that's being built. There's block going in now, under slab, utilities, all the plumbing, all the electrical under the slab is done and complete. Like I said, the chamber system that has to catch, that entire hillside drains to that site. So we have a large chamber system that has to catch all that water, it's underground, and then it leaches it back out at a pace that the ground can take. So we're not only, capturing the water we're capturing that entire field and everything that is over there now. So we should be good in water control now.
Well, the next major part will be, you got the building pad. The pad itself was just the driveways and parking.
Those are majority are cut in, and they've rocked some in for using for parking. We're trying to get them off the sidewalk. So they're creating, now that they're getting things out of the way, site equipment, things, they're all gonna be moving down onto that. So it'll stay continued into rock, so we should be in good position.
Any other questions? So just to make sure, we need to approve the claim for unsuitable soils as presented. Is that correct?
Yes, that's through 2 months of negotiations with all
Yeah.
parties, that's where we've got.
And that's been shared with you, and would there be a consideration of a motion for that?
I'd make a motion.
Kelly Corman with a motion. Second by Chad Wallace. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all for coming. We have a meeting on the 30th for an update, and we'll share that with the court as well.
Yes, sir.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
I also want to let the record reflect that Mr. David Livingston joined us about 6:25. He had trouble getting into the Zoom. With that said now, Chelsea, welcome. Everyone knows Chelsea from Strand and Associates. We've got a presentation about our Legacy Trail project. We are excited about this project, and we've been doing a lot of work.
Yes.
And grateful to hear about this project. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Judge. Yeah, so like Judge mentioned, I'm Chelsea Burke. I work for Strand Associates, and I'll talk to you tonight about the Scott County Legacy Trail. We'll go over the Section 1 portion of it. So this is just the agenda for tonight. I'm just going to kind of start at the Kentucky Horse Park. We cross over Cane Run, and then kind of end at the Lyle Road Soccer Complex. So here's the Kentucky Horse Park. You can see here kind of on the left, it starts at the existing Legacy Trail terminus that ends at the Scott County and Fayette County line, extends through, meandering the Kentucky Horse Park before utilizing an existing tunnel under I-75. You can see kind of the blue there to the left with the red hatching. That denotes existing floodplain or floodway, and then the kind of wider blue area denotes the floodplain. And that's all for the Cane Run Creek crossing through there. And so we have a proposed crossing on the next slide. Thank you. So as you can see here, this is what the proposed crossing will look like over Cane Run. We'll be utilizing a 3-span prefabricated truss bridge, similar to those on the existing Legacy Trail. Due to the Cane Run being in a regulatory floodway, we will have to redo those flood limits that were shown on the previous slide, given the installation of the bridge and path crossing. But that's just kind of what that looks like. Yeah, uh-huh.
You say a 3-span, so you'll have abutments on each side of the...
Yeah, three of them, so, or
Oh, will
3
you have-
spans, so there'll be a pier in the middle too.
So it'll be in the water? in the-
Well, so we're actually going to put them right outside of the floodway or the regular kind of saturated, typical flow for Cane Run. It'll actually be outside of that area. It only gets inundated with water when there's a major storm event.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions so far? Thank you.
Yeah. So, so once we cross under I-75, then the path users will quickly approach Kentucky 1963 or Lyle Road. Our preliminary design concept here is a compact roundabout. Again, this is preliminary, it'll kind of change in time, but due to the kind of introduction of these kind of vulnerable road users, like pedestrians and bicyclists. And just given the existing conditions along Lyle Road, it's really narrow, straight, there's no real shoulders, and streetlight data shows us that the speed limits along Lyle Road for the 85th percentile, so basically your average speed through this area is 62 miles per hour, so it's really, really fast. And so the goal with this roundabout is to slow folks down. There's also a lot of heavy truck traffic along Lyle Road. And so that's just another reason to kind of slow folks down and promote slower speeds and improve safety. One last thing to note on the improvement of safety is we propose installing a rectangular rapid flashing beacon at the crossing, just to kind of warn vehicles when there will be a path user crossing the road.
Chelsea, one of the comments during our meetings that we've had is another positive about the roundabout is that it will actually allow a grain truck to queue up outside the tunnel, but outside of the roadway, if someone is coming through the tunnel. That was very important in part of the conversation, and that's one of the attributes of adding the roundabout. And
Yes.
anybody that's been out there, you know, the data with the 62 miles per hour on that road is excessive and not safe, and then you add in the potential pedestrians and bikers. You know, this will calm traffic, it will slow traffic, and will be a positive for safety for everybody. So
Yes.
I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, thank you, because it is important. Right now, those truck movements are still happening, but it's really difficult. They're really poor sight distance for them making those movements out of the tunnel, so that will also improve things.
Chelsea, are they gonna, I know you said they're gonna have flashing lights, will they actually have like street lights like they have out on the bypass? Or you know, lights that shine down that illuminate the roundabout?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Street lighting will be a part of the project around the roundabout itself,
Yeah.
through the tunnel
Right.
under I-75, and then just on this other portion to the south of the page that you see, we'll also provide lighting right in that area.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. So I think that's it on this slide then. So then after leaving the roundabout, the path heads towards the Norfolk Southern Railroad line. It'll then turn and parallel the railroad line until we get to the Lyle Road Soccer Complex. And then it'll meander through the soccer complex. We've shown a bid alternate in hopes to extend that to the Lemons Mill Elementary. And so now that I kind of went over the actual design portion of it, I just kind of want to let the court know kind of our next steps for the process of the project. So the final design amendment approval and then environmental approval will be next. We have submitted the cultural historic report and phase 1 archaeological report to KYTC, so they're just reviewing that and we're waiting on their approval. The next step then will be the geotechnical investigation. We hope to get those recommendations in the fall of this year. That will inform our right-of-way plan set so that we can submit that. And then we will move forward on our FEMA permitting for the floodplain over Cane Run. And then once the plan submittal is approved and environmental is approved, we'll move forward with acquiring the land needed. And then lastly, submitting the full plan specs and estimate that'll be used for bidding and construction purposes. So there's kind of the timelines and next steps shown on that slide. Okay, and then lastly, I just want to talk about funding. So I think the biggest thing to note is that, you know, design, right-of-way, utility, construction all together is just under $5 million for the project as a whole. I've included a 15% contingency in this estimate. It's just pretty standard for this phase of the project, just giving the unknowns with all of the next steps. So that total amounts to $5.7 million. The TAP grant and match is currently just under the $5 million mark. So with those, we do have a little bit of a funding gap, and that's just particularly for the roundabout itself. The path and whole is funded. It's mainly just those additional safety improvements to Lyle Road. We have applied for a recreational trails program grant with the help of the county. And so that would cover the remaining portion in the Lyle Road Soccer Complex. And then we've also inquired about highway safety improvement program funds to aid in the roundabout construction.
So going through the process, the roundabout was not part of the original design.
It was not. It was only until we really got out there and saw just how fast people are going, just how poor the sight distance is with those grain trucks, and the narrow.
And that in itself was about 1.1 in additional funds. So, you know, you look at the contingency that has to be included, but hopefully not all of that contingency would be required.
Exactly.
And then looking at, we've discussed the option of future flex funds like we did on the roundabout on the bypass at Kentucky 32.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're trying our best to navigate a difficult situation and look at other revenue streams to help address that shortage. And we will continue to do that. I've talked with Kelly Baker today from District 7, KYTC, and you know, we'll find a way. So what questions would anyone have about what's been presented?
Judge, on, I was trying to think of Corky. Is it Corky Withrow has the property right
Yes. And Chelsea's met with him as lately as 2 days ago, I think.
Yeah.
there? So based off memory here, will we have to do any readjustment into, well, so in the roundabout, will it just feed straight into Corky's property where his existing driveway is, or is it
Yeah.
going to take other types of adjustments to be made or any construction to be made there?
Yes, it will. So the plan shown there, you know, it will end up adjusting than what you're kind of seeing there.
Mm-hmm.
Like Judge Covington said, I've literally met with him this week. So we're working on working through like how he would like the roundabout to function for his use as well as for the path users. And so, yeah, I think the ultimate goal is for Corky to not be a full leg of the roundabout, but just an entrance off of it in his existing location.
But it'll essentially be wide enough so that maybe way in the future, if that ever has to be utilized, there can be a
yes,
median put
absolutely.
in there so they can have both right and left in and out. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
you could absolutely widen out that
Okay.
to accommodate.
But pulling out of Corky's, he would always have to go around. And if he was going back towards the soccer complex or Lemons
Yeah,
Mill,
he's
going to have to go to the right.
Yeah.
Right.
But I just want to make sure that we don't make it to where it's shaped for a private drive, that it's in its full roundabout capacity, that in case in the future it ever has to be used. But I think that can be done.
Yeah, yes, through the final design kind
Yeah.
of portion of it.
But the roundabout, there's no question that the roundabout will improve safety for vehicles and pedestrians. So if there's no other questions, I did share an amendment to the agreement that has been approved by KYTC. Everything, since it's federal dollars, has to go through KYTC to be approved, then it comes to us. And it, you know, it shows and lists the changes of the scope of the services, and you have that document in front of you. We can consider that right now, or we could consider that at our next meeting if you have any other questions. Whatever is the pleasure of the court.
And Kelly, he's
That-
put his
that-
stamp of approval on it today.
Well, I don't know if Kelly has, but KYTC
Well,
has.
yeah, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's director of
Same
District 7.
difference,
Yes.
right?
They have to approve the hours, they have to approve the rates and such.
And so the main kind of changes in that is just the geotechnical investigation, the final design, and then land acquisition. And just one last thing, that is a part of that number that you see at the top of that screen there with the design, right-of-way, utilities, and construction.
Any questions or comments?
I'll make a quick comment while people are reading through this, but just as somebody that used to ride a lot on the roads, I quit whenever the Legacy Trail was built because it was much safer. You know, we talk about speed limits and how fast people go, and you're on a bike and somebody passes you doing 55 or 60, it gets your attention. So I've been a big proponent of this project, and I'm glad we're really looking at it from a safety issue. And I think it takes a lot of cyclists off the roads and makes it safer for them. And of course, there's a lot of people who drive cars that don't want to deal with cyclists either. So,
Right.
but anyway, that's just my comment.
Yeah, thank you.
I also think the families of the GFC, Georgetown Football Club, would greatly appreciate people slowing down as they
Myself
pull out of there.
included.
Yes. Driven out of there thousands of times.
Mm-hmm.
Like a speedway through there.
Yeah, it is.
Judge, if nobody else has any questions, I'll make a motion for approval.
I would make a second.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I would like to thank you very much.
Yes,
We'll
thank
continue
you.
working. I would like to recognize two people that's been involved or is going to be involved with this project and has been involved. Christy Robinson is with us today, and Christy's been an advocate of this project for many years from the start. And Christy, we thank you for your work and helping get us to this point. Thank you so much. And then Drew Beckett, our new, stand up, Drew, if you would. Drew is our new Parks and Rec director, and he will be heavily involved as we finish this off. And one of the major components of the master plan and surveys has been more bikeways and walking paths. So this is really addressing that as well. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, Chelsea. So we will now use that to transition over to number 10. And Elise is with us. Rhett is with us as well, staff member. And then two members of the Planning Commission, Mary and Charlie. I appreciate you all being here. So we'll have a presentation and then offer up public comment and then consider a resolution of endorsement of the comp plan. And just so you know, I've shared this before, and I've shared this with the court. The process by statute, and Cam or Charlie, Mary, or anybody correct me, but my understanding is by statute, the Planning Commission is the body that has to approve the update by statute. And what's been the longstanding practice in Scott County is after the Planning Commission considers the comp plan update, then it is forwarded to the Fiscal Court and the City Council of Georgetown and the City Commission of Stamping Ground Sadieville for consideration of a resolution of endorsement. So that's the process, and I just wanted to share that before Elise started her presentation. Thank you, Elise.
Thank you, everyone, for your time, and I'll kind of run through this process, how we got to this point, and everything like that. Joe Pat did reference staff. I do want to just point out that Rick Hostetler represented the Fiscal Court. Rob is our representative and appointee from Stamping Ground. And Dwayne, who's unfortunately not here, he's also a representative of Fiscal Court, and obviously our infamous Joe Pat. So moving onwards, so to kind of, as you stated, our process kind of began when we do our process every year. where we come in and we say every 5 years we're going to review our comprehensive plan, make updates as needed. It is a state statute that we continuously have an update to our plan to make sure we're always taking into consideration community changes and everything like that. The features of the plan contain a vision of what we want to look like in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Depends on the community. Some communities prefer a more short-term plan, and some communities prefer a more long-term plan. You're just checking in on it every 5 years. We also provide goals and objectives related to land use growth and key elements that are part of our community. Some are kind of intuitive, like infrastructure, and others are less intuitive, like public facility locations and human services. It helps us create a roadmap for when we're making legislative body decisions. So when zone changes come before the Planning Commission for their recommendation, and then later to a legislative body, such as the Fiscal Court, we kind of pull first from the comprehensive plan to see, does this comply with the community's goals for what's coming forward? Comprehensive plans also can help inform funding decisions. The best example is the Scott County Broadband Project, kind of being informed by the public comments collected as part of that process, helped us to pursue and increase access to infrastructure and resources to have rural broadband available for our residents in Scott County. As part of a plan, kind of stepping back again, we do review everything through a future land use and urban service boundaries. What should our land look like in the next 5, 10, 15 years? And what urban service boundaries should look like? What areas can be served by municipal level services, and what areas are outside of those abilities at this time? Again, as I stated before, this is used in part of the review process for land use changes and rezonings, as well as we look at it for development, redevelopment applications, proposals, and everything like that. And it just also provides some insight into any improvements we need to make to our standing ordinances, such as adding amenities focused on floodplain preservation or heritage type programs and projects. It really helps inform what are we doing and what can we go and do from here, and what ordinances do we need to take into effect in order to achieve our goals. Our process began officially in the formation of our executive steering committee, which again, as I stated, include Mr. Hosteller, Mr. Jones, Mr. Covington, and Mr. Ellison, as well as we have 2 of our representatives that represented the Planning Commission, Charlie Mifflin and Mary Singer. From there, we met regularly on a monthly basis, and then as we kind of proceeded through the plans, we felt the need to meet less frequently as we were working on text. We conducted public surveys and had online surveys in English and Spanish, digital ones, QR codes, links, paper copies dropped off to various offices and facilities where it might be harder, a partnership with Elizabeth's Village to try to reach out to community members that we very infrequently hear from. And then we had a public kind of kickoff meeting in June of 22. From there, we kind of worked a lot on getting a lot of our information and our ducks in a row. And a second public meeting was scheduled about a year later to talk about our goals and objectives, get those adopted. Continuing onwards, in April of 2024, we did have a public hearing, just kind of giving an update to everybody on where we're standing, what's going on. I believe Joe did a very good presentation at the time to the Planning Commission Board. We then published the full plan in May of 2024, and then had public meetings along the way to gather some more community input. We had a the steering committee did endorse the plan in July of 24, and then it was taken to the Planning Commission on July 11th, so just under a month ago for adoption by the board. We had a lot of community comment throughout all this process. And I cannot emphasize how much that really helps us understand what the community is interested in having and help us kind of form what we're going to do next. Our general plan has 11 chapters, 9 elements of focus. So we do set up a context and an implementation chapter, and then there's topic-specific items such as community forum, transportation, housing, etc. Each chapter follows a similar format with statements of value, fundamental principles that guide our intentions, a mission statement, followed by current conditions analysis, goals and objectives that we believe are important to take the next steps in achieving our ultimate goals. And then we also have some action items related to those objectives. In addition, in certain chapters, we had additional topics of conversation, such as the future land use map that we will be getting into shortly. So just to kind of do a quick analysis of where we're at, 2020 census data saw about 57,000 people residing in Scott County, and this graphic shows the population increase from the 70s up to 2020. Georgetown saw probably the greatest increase in growth with between 2 and 2.5% growth rate, far higher than the state of Kentucky and the United States as a whole. Scott County as a whole also saw a very high growth rate. Stamping Ground did rather well. And unincorporated areas, everyone was really growing during this time, just at various levels. So with those types of values considered, we made some estimates conservatively to try to see how many people we would need, and then we took ratios to determine how much land was available and how much land we would need in the next 5-10 years to determine what areas we needed to include in urban service areas and other project areas. Again, this is just kind of moving forward. If we're going to be proceeding at the rate that we were previously, if we were kind of decreasing our rate of growth, so being at a 1% rate, or if we were having a sudden blossom of growth in community, adding in what our growth patterns are looking like. And we anticipate reasonably that Scott County will, in about 2040, will potentially have 80,000 people. Between 60 and 80,000 is probably a reasonable gather. It's a pretty wide range, but you know, we'll take it what we can get at this point. It's very exciting to have new folks coming in. With all those things considered, we kind of start jumping into the patterns. So we made some amendments to the urban and rural service areas. Sadieville and Stamping Ground did see a decrease in their areas in order to help better serve their community members and not overstretch their facilities that they already have. Georgetown did see an increase in certain areas and a decrease in others. So areas like Oxford Village were pulled. We did amend the Greenbelt boundaries, so some additional areas were added for potential development just to make a more logical line. Adjusted some boundaries, added some areas west of Georgetown, and expanded areas to include the new high school location. We'll get to the very fun, colorful map in just a moment, but I just want to note some changes that we made to the future land use designation categories. Previously, we had just called it urban residential, rural residential, and that really kind of created a difficult ring around the community that kind of didn't really make a lot of sense from a planning side of things. So we decided to eliminate the rural residential and just have a low density, medium density in the agricultural areas. We also incorporated the office category into the commercial category, included the mixed use category, such as areas in our downtown and other areas that are developing in our town and communities that would be best suited for a mix of commercial and residential uses in harmony with one another. And then we also, again, as I stated, updated the Greenbelt area and added the creek corridors in order to protect our floodplains and prevent people from abusing them through improper use and improper preservation. So this is our larger future land use map for the community. Since we're rather long, I kind of broke it in half around the midpoint. So this is our areas to the north. Areas in green are agricultural areas. Areas in blue, such as the WMA and Little's Fork, are blue, which is a quasi-public use. And then as you move into city of Sadieville, you see some gray for industrial, red for commercial, and the pinks, or not the pinks, and the yellows and oranges for residential uses. As we move south, you kind of start seeing Georgetown in here. You can see the shape that they've had. We have proposed an expansion of urban areas for the purposes of providing more employment center opportunities. You can kind of see the city of Stamping Ground. It's mostly retained its general character of having that Main Street area with its residential surrounding. But this is generally what we're looking at right now in our general proposals. This is the first time that we've had a digital system that we can use to engage with and people can zoom into their properties further. And I highly encourage anyone who's interested in this type of thing. It's a really interesting system. We're really happy that we were able to get it to work for us. And I think it really offers a benefit for people to understand what's going on. It can be a little bit weird on a phone, but that's okay. We're working on a print version that we'll be having available shortly so people can use it. Going forward, this is just the individual cities a little bit more zoomed in. As I referenced before, Sadieville with that interchange has a commercial area, Stamping Ground kind of keeping a residential pocket around its mixed-use core, and then Georgetown with their large area for Toyota, the large yellow areas for the residential areas on both sides of the interstate, and then some other locations for employment centers such as Blaines Run Business Park and the Georgetown Industrial Park. As part of this, we wanted to take a special focus and talk about rural growth management policies in order to make sure that we are being considerate of our agricultural history and that we're making sure we're making the right decisions or the most informed decisions, I should say, when addressing land use policy in rural areas. So we talk about when we're making rural residential decisions, we want to make sure that we're approving developments and subdivisions in locations that are safe, where people can get to and from roads safely, that have a sufficient water service, that are roads that do not flood or flood infrequently, so that we can make sure that people can get to and from their homes safely. And just overall, just want to pick or kind of more support the locations through our policies that are best suited for additional residential uses, and not discourage, but be cautious to make sure that we are taking extra care, that we're not creating circumstances that are unsafe for our residents and communities. We're discussing some incentivization and policies regarding cluster subdivisions, as well as public water and fire protection availability, to make sure homes that are built and they can have fire service. And then we have also entertained the idea of having proximity to fire stations. I should note that a lot of this stuff is very theoretical right now. One of our action items is to create an agricultural policy group that we would hope would inform our decisions and our policy making to ensure that whatever route we take forward is the best for our agricultural community. We're interested in getting some stakeholder engagement from local advocacy groups, local people that do a lot of work in development, and our government offices, to make sure that we all kind of have a collaborative and informed decision-making process. Our last item is just talking about environmentally sensitive areas, just making sure that we're considerate of those lands that need or have additional challenges to development, to make sure that we're not creating circumstances that are unsafe for our residents. Moving onwards, I'll just quickly go through our remaining chapters. This is just a highlight of all of our maps that we've made. So this is our county parks maps with our WMA, the Littles Fork Park, the Kentucky Horse Park, and other community parks located within. We're making sure that everyone has access to park safely. Infrastructure, this is our broadband access map. Talked about it before. We're very happy and very grateful that we were told about this, and Judge Covington was able to make connections to greatly improve our access to utility services and amenities for all Scott Countyans in any location in the community. Transportation, this is just a highlight of the rural roads that service our community and what their widths may be and everything like that. Housing, this talks about our housing locations, where are people most likely living, and what considerations do we need to make in order to make sure that there's options available for all Scott Countyans of income and experience and housing type preferences. Human services here, this is highlighting mostly the cities, but it is important to note that there is an interest in certain communities for additional amenities and public services, such as libraries, fire stations, EMS stations like we just heard about, and other opportunities for community gathering places and everything like that. Heritage, we talk a lot about heritage in this project. We want to make sure that we're very considerate of our histories and our historic buildings. At this time, we have entertained previously some historic preservation actions and cultural resources, but it's not really been something that, well, there's areas for improvement in all of our projects, and heritage is one of those items. I think is the more appropriate way to say that. Second to last chapter is environment. This is just showing off our environmentally sensitive land to make sure we're considerate of features and making sure that we're making sure adequate protections are available and our environmentally sensitive areas are not damaged by choices that we make. Finally, I don't know why that says environment, I do apologize. This is our economic growth chapter. This is just talking about agribusiness, agritourism mapping. We also talk a lot about where locations for employment centers should be located and how that should be processed and everything like that. I know it's a big item, so I'm sure we'll hear about that in a little bit. But overall, this is kind of our agritourism and everything. Again, I do apologize. I meant to change the name, and it decided not to change on me. We can just close our eyes and imagine. With all those things and with everything that we've talked about, it was determined in collaboration with the steering committee, public comment, and previous action items and analysis was performed to determine that 51 action items were essential that we think can be addressed in the upcoming 5 years or so. Many action items are going to be part of our internal work plan, but a lot of them are cross-collaboratory. So we're working with a lot of different agencies and groups to make sure that we take the right actions and are informed based off of public comment, and to have the best community going forward. We've discussed having an internal officer in our staff to try to help through this process to make sure that we are achieving our goals and our action items. For example, our ag policy group, getting that together, kind of getting our policies forward. We want to make sure that we get everything done and this doesn't fall behind. When we did our last public meeting in June, we had a voting process to see which action item people believe should be of highest priority. So of over 200 votes that were cast, we saw that the greatest, the most voted for item was completion of the Legacy Trail. We just heard an excellent presentation on how that is kind of phasing in and hopefully how that works through our community. The next one was talking about agricultural policy, and then we start getting into some beautification and kind of visual aesthetic improvement projects that are important to create a community that we can all be proud of. Again, I'd like to thank all of our officers and all of our agencies that were involved in this process, and all of our community members who provided valuable input and feedback on what we were proposing. I don't think we could have done this work without the work of our steering committees, work of all of our agencies and groups and advocates for all of these projects. And so we're really just, again, perpetually grateful, and this is what we have to bring to everybody. Next steps from here is we've adopted the comprehensive plan with the Planning Commission, and as Joe Pat stated, this is a policy that we bring it to everybody else for just a resolution to essentially endorse or have a resolution regarding the comprehensive plan. With that, I have no further items.
Questions or comments from the court for a lease?
Just one thing, and I just want to make sure the court knows and the public knows. At the Planning and Zoning Commission, I believe there was 4 additional points that were on your all's approval, that be added into the comprehensive plan. I believe on your all's public domain that has already been added, correct, Elise?
Correct, yes.
And so what we're considering tonight encompasses those 4 things that was adopted by the Planning and Zoning Commission on that when it was presented in front of them.
Yes, those specific items pertain to the proposed western expansion area and any considerations and additional things we need to take into account for that area in town.
Any other questions or comments? Lisa, I appreciate your work and the staff's work and the commission's work. A lot of effort goes into it, and we all know Joe has taken a new job, and you've stepped in to help kind of carry this, and appreciate it very much. So, Rick Hosteller.
Just a couple comments. I saw this presentation in Sadieville on Monday, and it was excellent, just as tonight. But one of the things that I always think about with this, and I even told the city commission in Sadieville, because that was kind of their first look at what was going on. I left early. I don't know if they voted or not, but
They did not.
Yeah.
They wanted to use it as an information session.
Sure.
And then I directed them to ask some questions, and we'll meet later and have an action taken.
But one of the things that I see about this that I think all the legislative bodies got to understand is this is a guiding document that has a lot of input, and from the citizens, as Elise has already said, and from all the Sadieville, Stamping Ground, all the governing bodies. But it's a guiding document, and it can be tweaked. Something may come to us here at the fiscal court, or something may come to city council on any given issue, and what my experience is the planning commission always tries to bring it to the governing body with their recommendation of how it fits the comprehensive plan. But we don't necessarily have to stick to that. because it's impossible to put a document like this together and catch everything that will happen in our community. It's impossible. And I think it's, the public needs to understand that, because people can have an idea and they want to do something, and the first thought is, well, it doesn't fit the comprehensive plan. Well, your case actually might be different. So you go through a process and you come to planning commission, and it winds up at whatever body that has jurisdiction. So I just want to make that comment and let people know that it's a document that can be adjusted, and has been and will be in the future, by any of the governing bodies in Scott County.
Thank you, Rick. Any other comments or questions? Lease, thanks.
Of course.
I would now open and ask if any member of our audience would like to make public comment about the comprehensive plan update. And I would ask you to come forward, state your name, and give you 4 minutes to share.
Hi everyone, my name is Erin Chu, 108 Arrowhead Court. I've spoken with quite a few of you previously on the issue. I noticed that tonight in this presentation the western expansion was briefly mentioned but was not expounded upon, which I find interesting because it really is kind of a cornerstone of the plan. Again, allowing us to speak isn't the same as actually hearing what we're saying. And I don't know if you attended the planning and zoning meeting on the 11th, but the room was full. Judge Covington, I believe you were in the overflow portion for a significant part of the meeting as well.
No, I came in.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
some
but we
of the
had a great
seating,
crowd. There were
some
a
of the
lot of
seating
people.
came open after after a portion, after the zoning portion.
Yep.
Yes.
So there was a great crowd, a great turnout. We had dozens of people. I think there were 20-some who got up to speak specifically about concerns about the plan. The overwhelming feeling from the audience was that it was a foregone conclusion, that while we were allowed to speak, no one was actually particularly interested in reconsidering their positions on it. We made a variety of points, and they're the same points that have been brought up meeting after meeting after meeting. At this point, there's almost 750 people in the social media group that are specifically organized around the western expansion. And it's been clear from the beginning that it feels like this is going to happen no matter what the community has to say. At the presentation at City Council on July 8th, it was clear there were still a lot of unanswered questions around how all this is going to work. It's been in the works for a year, and we're just now hearing some details about how this is all going to function. So I would just ask that you recognize that the community has been very clear about how we feel about the western expansion as it relates to the comprehensive plan. The newspaper poll was 80-20 opposed when it came out, and I would just ask that you please take that into consideration in making your decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good afternoon, or good evening, Judge and Magistrates.
Good evening.
I'm Steve Glass, 143 South Hamilton Street, Georgetown, Kentucky. First thing I want to say is you guys are going to have to start spending some money to help the Georgetown city government out. According to this statistics here, 65% of the population lives inside Georgetown, but you guys take half the revenue and you don't spend anything inside Georgetown. And I know you're going to make the argument, well, there's the interlocal agreements. Well, that runs both ways. Whenever there's an EMS station built out in the county, the city pays for half of it. So we might as well build all of them ourselves and let you build yours. We've got 3 managers here whose districts are almost entirely inside the city of Georgetown, but I never hear you guys say anything about making any improvements inside of Georgetown. So anyway, that's the point. It's been bugging me for about 25 years now, and it's come to a head. You're seeing the results. The city is starved. City government is starved. Another thing is, we residents of Georgetown were asked through a rate increase to finance Even water increase. Water and sewer both are going to increase 65% to add additional sewer capacity for growth and to improve those stations. And now you're gonna develop Sadieville? They're not paying for any of this. Kentucky American serves them. How in the world are the people of Georgetown? How are we gonna benefit from developing in Sadieville? We should have been told that this money, our money, was going to be used to enrich developers and landowners in Sadieville. Every dime that's spent down there in a commercial operation, we get none. Georgetown gets none of the tax revenue. Just want to put a bug in your ear. Thank y'all very much.
Anyone else?
I wasn't really prepared to speak tonight because I didn't know we were going to have an open meeting, but just real quickly, I agree with everything else that's been said. If anybody's listened to the planning, I'm sorry.
Share your name?
I'm Kristen Chilton. I live at 280 Robinson Lane, which is right across from the Robinson Dam.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm very familiar with Elkhorn Creek. So I'm here to speak about the West End also. And I just encourage you to realize how much Elkhorn Creek brings to this community. I have lived there for 20 years, and the amount of people that are seeking Elkhorn Creek for recreation has exploded in the last 5 years. I mean, really has. If you put a traffic counter on Robinson Lane, and one of my neighbors is over here, you would be surprised of the amount of cars and traffic that come up and down that little road. We're blocked out of our driveways on the weekends. The farm past us can't get access because it's all blocked up. So we've got a great recreational that runs all the way through the town. And to take all of that property that's got a little over a mile of Elkhorn access on the Wiles property and turn it into business or industrial is really a shame not to develop that for recreation for this community. And I talk to people that come there. They come from Georgetown, they come from all over the state, and they come from other states to come to Elkhorn Creek to canoe and kayak and fish. And it's not old people, fishing people from Scott County. These are young people with families. So I think we really underestimate sometimes the natural resource that's right here in our county. And just real quick, one other thing I want to add to it is, we're not New York City, but Central Park was developed, and the idea was back in 1850. They had the foresight to see how the city was going to grow and what the need was going to be for green space and recreation as the city grew. Same thing with Jacobson Park in Lexington. That place used to be out in the middle of nowhere because I used to live in Lexington. I drove by there last Saturday. The cars were everywhere. That park is getting so utilized now. So I just really encourage you to think about that land and at least at the minimum, preserve a big chunk of that for biking, walking, kayaking, or just as a family park. Because recreation, if you just saw from the plan, is very, very important to people. And more people are realizing how important nature is and to seek nature and get out into nature. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
All right. Good evening, Judge and board, Circuit Court members. My name's Michael Crisp, and I'm against, a lot of the things that are in the Western expansion. And one of the reasons why I'm a lifelong resident, I grew up in Lancelot, not far from the area where the proposed business park is. And I wear a lot of different hats, have done a lot of different job-related things over the years. And one of the things that I've done is write a few books. And whenever I try to explain to friends, family members, other people in the community what's going on with the proposed business park, I always liken it to, if it were a book, it's a lot like a mystery, because we really don't seem to know. We hear a lot of rumors, a lot of which are somewhat perhaps substantiated. From the get-go, we heard that this might be one of the tenants there at the business park might be a battery plant for Toyota. If that was the case, that would be something that we'd like to know just as a community. If it's another type of energy type plant, which is allowed in the BP1 according to those permitted uses, that would also be something that we'd like to know. It just seems like as a community, we're getting into the business of either being a landlord or a property owner and having tenants. Now, I know most people in this room have either rented property or own rental property, or have bought property or sold property. And whenever you do that, you get just an incredible amount of information about the transaction. You know who you're dealing with, you know who you're selling to, you know who you're renting to. And with this, we just, at this moment, we the people don't know who is going to be coming into that particular business park. That aside is incredibly important. Also are the environmental concerns, the traffic concerns, the safety concerns, the business relationship with the other counties. For example, many years ago, we got into a similar relationship that brought the Scott County landfill to Scott County. Raise your hand if you really liked having the Scott County landfill around here. Nobody? And the you know, what was it, Mallard Point, even just a few years ago, had to put up with that smell for a long time. So we're just concerned as a community, why are we partnering with these other municipalities? Are they bringing something here that they don't want in their community? That's a big deal. But finally, before I wrap up, from a nature perspective, I think all of us really agree that is a beautiful 500-acre farm. Of course, the Wiles family has the right to sell it. It's theirs. You can sell property. But we all love nature. We love environment. We love what's there. I count really most of you on the board as friends, not just online, but in person. And even you, Mr. Judge, we're friends. And one of my favorite things on Facebook is whenever you share your pictures of these beautiful sunsets. And I always think about your appreciation of beauty whenever I see those sunsets. So I encourage you to keep sharing those. And I hope one day we never see a sunset marred by a nuclear power plant or a battery factory in those beautiful pictures you keep sharing. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone else? With that said then, I would like to ask Cam to read the resolution.
All right. Scott County Fiscal Court Resolution 2419. A resolution of the Scott County Fiscal Court adopting and approving the 2024 updated Georgetown-Scott County Comprehensive Plan. Whereas, after all required notices, consultation, review, and public hearing, the Georgetown-Scott County Planning Commission adopted its recommended 2024 update to the comprehensive plan at its regular meeting held July 11, 2024 at 6 p.m. And whereas the recommended 2024 update includes the revision and reporting of the goals and objectives for each required element of the plan, and whereas after required notices, review, and consultation, the update to the comprehensive plan was presented to the Scott County Fiscal Court at its regular meeting held July 25, 2024. Now therefore be it resolved by the Scott County Fiscal Court as follows. That the Georgetown-Scott County Planning Commission's recommended 2024 update to the comprehensive plan was approved and adopted as appropriately providing guidance for the public and private actions and decisions to assure the development of public and private property in the most appropriate relationship pursuant to KRS 100.083 at SEC. And that would, if you all approve that, that would be done today, July 25th, 2024.
Well, I'll make it just a few brief comments. You know, part of the steering committee. Rick was part of the steering committee, as well as Dwayne. Met many times. We've shared and talked about the process of the comp plan update. And there is no question, and I want to go back on a comment from Mr. Crisp about the landfill. This body worked tirelessly to address that environmental concern, and I believe addressed it appropriately. And I think our county's the better for it now. And I appreciate the leadership of this body in the sensitivity and the concern and listening to the community as well about that and what was brought up. And, you know, we're all here tonight because we love Scott County. I love Scott County, and you're here because you share that same passion and love. And I can assure you that consideration of that and consideration of trying to look at the comp plan as a whole, as a guidance, and then look at what was mentioned by lease. You know, it was an action plan item in the comp plan to improve rural broadband access. When I became judge, it was the first thing we started talking about, and we worked collaboratively and addressed that. And I'm proud to say that we're very close to wrapping up that project. Over 4,500 homes in rural Scott County now have access to high-speed broadband. Over 450 miles of fiber have been deployed. I think the total number of pole permits for this project, and here's the map. Thank you, Zach. This is where the green represents, construction complete. Yellow is still pockets of construction going on because we have no control over pole permitting. And it's just been a big learning curve for everybody. And then in the orange, construction, I can't read it, I'm sorry, I'm getting old. Construction pending, pole permitting. And then the red is related to railroad permitting up in Sadieville there. And we have worked, I've called Senator McConnell, I've called Congressman Barr's office, I've called the state, the governor, to try to get help with moving those railroad permits forward. And my understanding is, as late as a week ago, the railroad permits were approved, but now they have to schedule the work. And when they ask for the work to be scheduled, they want the VIN number of the vehicle, they want the Social Security number of the workers, and it can't move. It's just a long process. But I'm very proud of this. We've had a lot of positive feedback. Has it been a perfect process? No. But no one will not have access in Scott County. And it's a major thing for our community, and it is a product of the comp plan. So a lot of work's been done. You're never going to make everybody happy when you do something like this. And sometimes adults have to agree to disagree, and you move on. And you do it in a respectful manner. And I've met with Aaron, and we've had respectful, great back and forth. And I respect what you bring to the table, and everybody else, Michael and Stephen. So I just wanted to make that comment. And we've read the resolution. What's the pleasure of the court? Would there be a motion to accept that resolution?
Judge, let me make a
Oh, absolutely. I should have said that. I didn't offer it up. I apologize.
No problem. I kind of want to go back to the landfill issue, just to, and maybe I misunderstood, but it was not a partnership between Scott County and Georgetown or whatever and the city of Lexington. That was a contract between the city of Lexington and the private owner of the landfill, who is still the current owner of the landfill property. They bought it from the city of Georgetown. That was before my time on the court, although I got to learn a lot about that through the process of dealing with what everybody knows happened. And they're currently continuing to put in topsoil and cap that existing landfill. In that process, I understand, looking back, and what I learned was the city of Georgetown it was a financial drain to operate the landfill, and they chose to sell it. And so they did, to a private company. So that's kind of the background that I learned. I was not on the court when that happened. And another thing that came about because of the landfill, again, before my time, was this sewage line that comes down from Sadieville. It originated, it happened from my investigations way back then over the landfill. When my first phone call when I first got elected in a first term, and I wasn't even official, it was just the night after the election was over in 2014, was about the landfill. And so I began to dig in. So I spent a lot of time on it in the last several years. But with that said, the sewage line was put in to accommodate the effluent, the sewage.
Leachate.
Leachate.
Thank you. The leachate to treat that properly, because they've had multiple outbreaks since I've been on the court. That's over with now, but that was their biggest part of their problem, was they were contaminating their leachate ponds were contaminating even with the sewage line that was already in. Their leachate ponds were not being managed properly. That was nobody's fault but theirs. That leachate was leaching out into surrounding farms, getting in their springs, which got into the creeks, which fed into Little Eagle, that fed into Eagle Creek, and contaminated. That went on, off and on. They worked on fixing it. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds. I just want to let you all know that those are what's going on. So when they put that sewage treatment line in, they did go to Sadieville. Those folks pay on their water bill. Mr. Glass is correct. It is Kentucky American on that side of the interstate. They still get a bill through Kentucky American that goes to GMWSS for their sewage usage. So does Mallard Point, so does Harbor Village, and all those little subdivision communities that are tagged on to that line that comes out of Sadieville. So it's not totally accurate to say that they're not kind of paying their way or whatever, but I understand what Mr. Glass is talking about, because we've had the conversations.
No, sir. I'm sorry, Mr. Glass.
I don't mind if he does, because that's up to you, Judge, but Steve and I have talked, and I'm just trying to give some details as I see them, and so that money does get paid to, because I've had complaints from people in Mallard Point and other places up and down US 25 about their sewage bill. But that's how I understand that it gets tracked through what you pay in water, drinking water, which is Kentucky American. So, but the sewage line and all of that was before my time. This is just what I learned as I went through the process over the landfill. So I just kind of wanted to share that. It was never a partnership at that time or at any time with Lexington and Scott County. It was a partnership with Lexington. They had a contract with WSB.
As well as many other.
Sure. WSB had other contracts with other communities that they were bringing the trash that they had bought the landfill off of Georgetown. Again, all that's before my time. So just kind of wanted to throw that out there as information.
Mr. Glass, since Rick,
sure,
if you want to make a short comment, but I don't want this to become, and I'm not going to allow it to become a debate.
Well, I mean, since he brought my name up, I think I'll be able to respond to that. You know, Rick, they raised both our sewer and water both, and it's my understanding they were only improving the sewer treatment plant. And when you're on Kentucky American, you're not paying any of that. And another thing is, Georgetown built that sewer line to the dump or the landfill and paid for all of it. Fiscal court didn't pay for any of it.
I don't know.
They said they were going to pay for part of it, but they didn't.
Yeah.
So it all goes back to this thing where you guys are getting the gravy and we're getting the leftovers. So.
Well, so, well, here's my understanding, because I've talked to folks in Mallard Point and other subdivisions. They get a water bill from Kentucky American. I'm on Kentucky American, but I'm not on the sewage. I have a septic field on my farm. But if my understanding is correct, and I think it is, they get a bill based on their water usage that goes to GMWSS as a sewage fee, is what I understand.
So okay. That's your understanding.
That's my understanding of how that works.
So,
now, I get a water bill from Kentucky American, but there's no sewage bill because I'm not on the.
Yeah.
So that's my understanding.
I have a question.
So Ryan, I want to focus this back on the comp plan.
That's my question.
And
just to make sure, this resolution that we're about to vote on or potentially vote on only has to do with approving the comp plan. It has nothing to do with the KDPI, the regional authority.
It has nothing to do with that. And this is a resolution of endorsement for the comp plan.
I'll make a motion to accept the endorsement.
Motion, Mr. Jones?
Being a part of the last comp plan update, I played a major role in it. I was the chairman of that comp plan. It is awesome to see folks step up and spend the time it takes to make this comp plan. This is a plan for all of us in the county. I've been in this county all my life. I love this county. I would do nothing to ever hurt this county. This comp plan is a guide we can all use and grow our community to the way we see fit. Now, whether it's to be changed later on, it could be. I've seen many a times there was plans come in to the Planning Commission, and it would be against the comp plan, but it would still get approved because it was the right thing to do for that plan. So I'll second Ryan's motion, and thank you guys for working so hard on this comp plan.
Thank you. So we have a motion and we have a second. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you all for your work, and thank everyone for being here. Next on our agenda is the purchase option contract extension, and this is related to KPDI, Regional Economic Development. And be more than happy to take any public comment prior to consideration of that document. I would like to, Aaron, absolutely. You can double dip.
Again, I appreciate you guys, and I do want to echo your exact same thoughts that we're all here because we really care about Georgetown, and massive respect to everyone in this room, Elise, Rhett, everybody on the planning group. I know that it's a huge job, and I totally understand the complexities, and we all care a lot. It's just that we have a slightly different vision of what we want the future of Georgetown to look like, and that's okay. And that's why we're able to come together and have open comments and dialogue like this, and I appreciate that. So wanted to start off by saying thank you. As it relates to the Wiles Farm and the option to extend, please correct me if I'm wrong on any of these numbers, but my understanding is that the initial investment was $200,000. There was $128,000 towards site research, and we're talking about a $100,000 extension tonight. So we're $428,000 into this thing. Is that not right?
I think your second number is a little high right now.
Yep.
So we have done due diligence. We had engineering firm, but I believe that's a little high. But,
Ellie Gregg, I believe.
Correct, and it was about 50. I can't remember. I don't have it in front of me.
Okay.
But yes.
Yep.
The option to purchase, 12-month term, allowed us to do due diligence, but with the original agreement, there was a 6-month option to extend for an additional $100,000, and that gives us till January 27th to finalize the process, and that's another $100,000. You're correct.
Yep, thank you. So somewhere in the range, 300, 400, somewhere in there. Based on previous presentations, we're still very fuzzy about who's going to be on the board that's going to direct the future of this development, how much it's going to cost all in terms of infrastructure and all those other pieces, the services that are going to be required to supply police and fire and all the other things that go into something like this, whether the funding is going to come through that we're talking about would potentially be applied to it. It's unknown at this point. And also the revenue and what portion of that is actually going to stay in the county. So I just want to point out that we've already invested a significant amount of money in this project. There are still major questions about what the return on that investment is going to be. And I'd like to reiterate again that it would be very nice as a taxpayer to feel like the concerns are being heard, since we're the ones paying for it at the end of the day. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Glass?
This is another good example of how you're putting the city in a bad situation. You've already put out $500,000. You're getting ready to put out another $100,000. You guys have got money to burn. The city doesn't. And besides, you want to talk about what a big success Lanes Run was. The city financed that whole project itself for many years, up until just recently. The fair thing to do is for you guys to put up all the money on Wiles Farm. If you want a business park, you guys pay for it. The city's going to have to provide the services, fire, police, public works protection. So you're even going to take half of the 10% for the host county. So I think you guys need to put your money where your mouth is.
Any other public comment? Rob had to step out. I will make a few comments and just, the KPDI program was offered up by the state of Kentucky, and it was designed to promote economic development across the Commonwealth. Every county was eligible for $2 million, and it's a $2 million match. And over the course of the last year and a half, the governor, the cabinet have really stressed and promoted regional projects. And we were approached by Madison County to consider, and that's how the project kind of got off the ground. And when you look at our community, we are growing, and we're not, turning the faucet off is not an option. In the next 6 years, we will have 5,000 young people out of Scott County High School and Great Crossing High School. They'll graduate, and they'll either go on to continue their education or they'll go into the job market. We want opportunities for those folks here. And those young people, our best and brightest, we want opportunities. And when you look at the model of Lanes Run, the BP1 designation, the protection from planning and zoning, with the Planning Commission really having the final word on what type of development can go into a development, then I look at what we are proposing as being very sensitive to the community. We're not proposing heavy industrial refineries, we're not steel mill, we're not proposing that. The model of Lanes Run has worked, and it's taken time, and it's still being closed out. But you're only down to about 60 acres of unspoken for land in 1 and 2, plus about 25 additional acres that Mr. Connor is developing 3 pad-ready sites. And of the 61 acres in 1 and 2, not all of it is really great. It's got issues like slope and such. And then you have 72 acres in what is phase 3 that we received $1.5 million in PDI local. We did two approaches. So we're trying to close out Lanes Run, and we partnered there. But when we look at the regional approach, we really think it's the best thing and the most efficient for our taxpayers. And it's equal investment and then sharing the revenue equally. And we really think that by applying for federal and state dollars collectively, that we will be much more competitive to get those state dollars to help with the infrastructure and the development. And we really think that we'll be more competitive in attracting jobs. And the thought process of this, when we started, we were looking in multiple counties. This site was for sale for some time. And this site's going to be developed. If it's not going to be a business park, it's going to be 1,500 houses. And I would venture that the environmental impact, the traffic impact will be less on a BP1 lanes run type business park than 1,500 plus houses. And we're trying to move our community forward and have opportunities, but do it in a physically responsible way. And the equal investment, sharing the revenue, yes, is part of it. But always, I would not sit up here and recommend that the city of Georgetown and Scott County try to do this on our own. It would be a huge stretch. And then the prospect of, you look at Glendale. Glendale had that site, and it's much bigger than what we're proposing. That site sit empty for 20 plus years. And we're going to have to market our product, but we have a great location. And our location in Georgetown with 75 and 64 helps us. So, we have to have product to compete. And I will remind everyone as well, as we shared with the city council 2 weeks ago or so, that the thought process of this is the first site. Then there will be another site in another community that will be under this umbrella of this development authority, Business Park Development Authority. And we will get a share of that proceeds from that revenue from that park when it's up. Just like Madison and Fayette's getting a share from this park. So it's a big picture, long term. And I don't have a crystal ball to say X, Y, Z, and a lot of this is still in draft. But some numbers that have been used, there's 1,000 workers at Lanes Run right now, 1,000. So we have used the number and what's been shared by professionals about how many jobs could go at this site. 1,400 is the number. 1,400. So if you use 1,400 jobs when it's ultimately built out, and you look at $30 an hour, that's the number that Jack Connor has shared as a fair number to look at as money for a worker there. So that's $62,400 a year. And then if you multiply that out, when it's completely built out, and I know it's a long process, but that's $87,360,000 in salary that would go into people's pockets here in Central Kentucky, here in Scott County. And then that's just opportunity. And we're not promoting industrial, and I will not promote a nuclear power plant. I will lay down in the road before we would support something like that. The Planning Commission has the ultimate control. They will get every development concept plan, they will look at them individually, and they will follow their guidelines. And that's our people, our Planning Commission. So we're trying to do what's best for our community in the long run. The other piece that you have to consider is the restrictions with BP1. There's architectural restrictions, there's requirements for tree canopy, buffers, all those things, and we want to put trails through here, connectivity to the creek. Yes, there's a historical property. We're not going to tear that house down. We're going to carve out, we'll preserve that piece of property, and we will make accommodations and follow all federal and state guidelines that are required. We will do that. So I just wanted to give that input, and we've shared that pretty much with City Council, exactly what I've just shared. I shared that with City Council about 2 weeks ago. So we have the amendment before you. You've had the amendment with you. You've read it. Are there any questions for that? And then would there be a motion to accept?
What happens if the regional authority, so we do this extension for January 1st and the regional authority doesn't happen, then what happens?
First of all, there's a resolution that Georgetown has partnered on the due diligence up to $115,000 each. And then additionally, there's been commitments, and there's nothing on paper, but I'm very confident Reagan Taylor, Judge of Madison County, will not, if for some unforeseen reason that it goes off the rails and it doesn't go through, then what's being committed is that the entities would settle up and make it whole. What other questions? Would there be a motion?
Motion for approval.
Motion? Second? Any other questions or comments?
No, I mean, I'll say that I've talked to everybody, I'm not for the regional part of it, but, so I'll vote for it because I'd like to see the land, us try to go at it on our own if the regional doesn't happen, but, so, I like us controlling the land and controlling the fate of Scott County, but, currently I'm not for the regional aspect of it. And that's nothing new to probably anybody up here, so.
Respect that.
Judge, I'll make a comment along with Ryan's. I have inhibitions about that, but that's about the regional concept. I'm very familiar, obviously, with the agreements we have, interlocal agreements. We have a number of them with between Scott County and Georgetown. I know what they look like, but they're Scott County. I mean, they're Georgetown, Scott County agreements. But that's one of the things that's still we don't have defined is what that.
So to address that.
Right, the agreement's gonna look like.
Michael George, Michael George was with Compass Municipal Advisors. Michael, George, and RJ have a long history and relationship with the Scott County Fiscal Court. Once we got into digging and trying to navigate the interlocal agreement, which is really so critical, and it has taken time, I have asked Michael and Compass Municipal Advisors to really be an advocate in our, just help guide us so that the interlocal really protects the fiscal court in Scott County. So Michael,
sure.
Would you like to share some of the things that you're working on and kind of give us just are we close to having a draft that's shareable?
Yes, we are. We expect to have a draft in the coming days to share with you all. Just for some kind of history, we've worked on the financial side for various interlocal agreements, different types of industrial parks across the state, Warren County, Todd County, in various places. And so what we wanted to do, working with Judge Covington, was to make sure that the interlocal agreement had protections in for Scott County and it made economic sense for you all in the way that it functioned. And so we have provided those comments to the attorneys. We recommended bringing on a firm that does bond work and economic development work just to represent Scott County and your all's perspective. And so they're providing comments as well, again, with the goal to have protections in the interlocal agreement for Scott County and to make sure that kind of every stone has been unturned and looked at so that the interlocal works for you all and it works for the group. And so, like I said, I expect to see a draft of that in the coming days.
And we'll share that draft. And that's the next item. We have a motion and we have a second. And if we'll vote on this, but if it's approved, then we will move forward with the interlocal. Once we have that draft that's shareable, we'll make it public. And it's still in draft, it's almost there, and then we'll share it. We'll take comments, and then we'll go from there. Is that fair?
Is there a different interlocal, like you mentioned earlier, for like Madison County there, if they had one come on, would there be a different interlocal agreement for each one that's created?
There'll be one interlocal agreement for all parties. If they're...
This is to form the authority itself, the agreement.
It forms the authority, and then And then if there's another site, that authority is operating in the interest of the partners to move forward with economic development, perhaps in another county, at another site. So there's only one interlocal that will set up by statute, it's called a regional industrial development authority. So does that answer your question?
And it would function, to piggyback off that comp plan discussion, I mean, these things are developed where they can be, it's not, you don't draft interlocal and it's done forever. It can always be amended. And so if there was a site in a different county and it made sense to amend it for all parties, that option would exist.
So with that said, if there's no other questions, we have a motion and we have a second, correct, Ms. Hamilton?
Yes.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Michael, thank you.
Judge, one other comment.
Yes, sir.
So when we get this agreement, where we can read it, obviously, and see it, and it's shareable, maybe that might be an opportunity, because for me, that's always been the biggest piece. I don't know what that looks like, so it's always been, there's where my inhibition has been, as I shared earlier. Maybe that'll be a time that we could get the new Scott County High School auditorium, or Great Crossing Auditorium, and maybe have where we can share it all, and possibly, if you want to consider another public forum where then we'd have all the answers. Because I think this agreement is the biggest thing in my mind.
100%. Absolutely. And I will share, that we've shared that once we got there, that we were going to distribute this and share that, we talked about that. It's just taking time. And I would rather take time on the front end to make it right than not have a good document that protects us. So we'll move forward with that. I am going to go ahead and I'm going to veer just one piece here, and I'm going to call Michael back up. And Michael's our counsel as well. He counsels us and consultant with the Hall of Justice project. And we have navigated now to where we've approved the bids, the recommendations, but from the Trace Creek, who is the construction manager, has gone through that process, and AOC's in the process of checking all the boxes on the contracts. And we're at a time now that we needed an update about the financing. So I'll turn it over to Michael.
Thanks, Judge. Yeah, that's exactly right. You all have kind of gotten through the hard part with the development, design, and the bidding process. The bids came back very favorably, and so now it's kind of time to dot the I's, cross the T's, and then move forward to the financing component and actually start constructing the building. And so we have submitted the plan of finance to AOC based on those bid results. And so the combination of the strong construction bids and the fact that interest rates have came down in the last 2 months as folks expect the Fed to cut rates are two very favorable factors. And so the fact that the project came in at or below the budget and the fact that interest rates have came down mean that the project does fit within AOC's use allowance. And so we have submitted the plan of finance to AOC last week. We anticipate that they will review and they should approve that here in the coming weeks. And then as Judge Covington said, it's just a matter of them going through the bid documents and doing everything they need to on the legal side for you all to proceed. And so if I had to ballpark based on kind of where we see this at with respect to other projects, I would think in the next couple months, month to 2 months, you'd be in a position to secure the financing and actually start on the construction of the building itself.
Any questions for Michael? And there's no action item.
That's right. No action item. Just wanted to give you all an update. Good news. I don't expect anything would disrupt, this project from going forward, at least on the financing side. To the extent that we can help push this thing along, I mean, I wouldn't expect the bond markets to be disrupted by the election, but that is probably the biggest geopolitical event that may impact interest rates. And so, to the extent we can help push this thing to make sure it gets across the finish line from the financing side before we get into the nuts and bolts of the election cycle, we would recommend doing that, and we'll push for that. But you all are well within the use allowance, and the project should proceed accordingly.
Is that a reasonable goal to wrap up and sell those before November?
I would recommend that. I mean,
That's what I hope we can do.
I think I'm hopeful that nothing would, we're all hopeful that nothing would happen that would mess with the financial markets. I think it's realistic to assume the Fed's going to cut rates going forward, but the fact that interest rates are lower now, the fact that the project came in under budget is just a good sign, and you're at a good point to execute on that. So any chance you can do that before any potential disruptions, I think makes sense.
Any other questions? Michael, thank you as always.
Thank you all.
Appreciate your time. We'll now go to EMS promotions.
Good evening. Like last time, I have more good news to share. Two of our full-time EMTs recently completed the paramedic program that Georgetown Scott County EMS established with Bluegrass Community and Technical College. And on behalf of Chris Runyon, I'm pleased to recommend the promotion of Sierra Thompson and Shelby Nolsher to paramedic effective August the 3rd. Sierra's new pay rate will be $18.39 an hour, and Shelby's will be $17.90. And in addition, I see Shelby has been able to join us today. So if we could just formally acknowledge her and please stand, Shelby. And Chris, if you want to say something too on Shelby's behalf.
I do. Good evening, Judge, Magistrates. I asked Shelby to be here just because she will be the first individual that has gone through our EMT program and now through our paramedic program. So again, when we talked about truly raising our own, she is the first. So I thought we should recognize her for that.
Thank you for your commitment and being a good student and helping protect and keep Scott County safe. Anyone else make a comment? No, congratulations. We're so happy to have you and blessed to have you. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, I'll leave you with that recommendation for approval.
Motion, second. Motion from Rob Jones, second from Rick Hosteller. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Judge, just as a reminder, Chris, how long has the program been? When we started, has it been 4 years?
For EMT,
Yeah.
this August will be our fourth year. For paramedic, in August will be our second program. So.
Awesome.
Yeah, pretty awesome.
Scott County resident.
Yeah.
Before you ask, are we fully staffed?
We are.
So leads me to number 13. Is Lisa McFarland here with us? Mm-hmm. Hey, won't you come up and, Kelly came to us or called me, and I assume that was after a phone call or email from her.
We've had a couple phone calls.
We have.
And
So
I want to apologize too, because we talked yesterday, and I told her, I was like, you'll probably be on around 7 o'clock.
but blame me.
Thanks for hanging in there. It's 8 o'clock.
Blame me, but please know that as soon as this was brought, we had immediate discussion. We had discussion with Lori Saunders with tourism. She's been a part of this short-term rental ordinance as well, and wanting to listen to you and listen to our community, and if there's something in the ordinance that needs to be amended, that's what we're looking at. So at our last meeting, kind of out of the discussion, it was David Livingston asked, and he's on the call, about looking at other communities' short-term rental ordinances again to kind of compare, are there limits to how many folks that can stay, time limits, a variety of things. Jared Holland did some research for us. We've shared that with the court. We're still kind of in the chewing on it piece, but we want to hear from you tonight.
Well, I was going to say, maybe I'll give you some more to chew on then, because I have some ideas of my own. And I'm Lisa McFarland. I live at 119 Ridgeview Estates, and we have been there 18 years. We were about the 7th or 8th home. So Airbnb started in 2008, and our subdivision was already established before then. And I've been doing research on Airbnbs too, and I told Kelly I had things that I wanted to enter into the record here, because I have from Mr. Livingston, I believe it was, that's a safety officer. We have an email, we have the sheriff's log, and we have something from the fire department, the chief, so we wanted to let everybody know what happened. So I'm just going to do a brief synopsis of that, because there are people here that lived closer to it than I did, and I talked to Kelly about it. But one of our neighbors calls our subdivision Camelot, because it's 19 homes on a cul-de-sac. We know each other really well. I've seen their kids graduate from college and high school and get married, so we're very close. And then this house, the very first house, and I have a satellite image of our neighborhood, the very first house on the left became an Airbnb, really unbeknownst to any of us, because what I can tell, you don't really have to let anybody know. So the weekend of June the 7th is when everything happened, and like I said, everybody that's from our neighborhood knows about it, and you all will have a
Who's
more
from the
detailed-
neighborhood that,
There's, yeah.
welcome, so I'm glad you're here.
So there was a birthday party. Things started on Friday night, and the people that are here correct me, but I think they had some reports about noise, and they were gonna, like, okay, we'll just, be a hospital, not worry so much. They may have called, but then late Saturday night and Sunday morning, everything just broke loose, and there were like 40 to 50 cars documented in an email. There was over 100 people at the house. The fire department was called because the smoke detector, I guess, activated an alarm. They could not get to the house. Then when they walked up to it, they were not allowed in. So all of us lived beyond that house. So that means we had no access. So we were in danger. No EMS vehicle could get through. I've called them for my household. My next door neighbor's called them twice for her household at various times. So that's really a huge concern for us, that nobody could get there. And it's not like they could go through backyards, and get there, because, well, there's pools and, wood piles and everything. So that was a really big deal for us. They confiscated guns. There was an AK-47. There was a handgun that was modified to be fully automatic with a 17 clip inserted into it. There was prostitution. So we just kind of decided and talked among ourselves that it was something that we needed to, speak up about. I called Kelly. He was great. I said, my concern has become his concern. Our neighborhood has become his concern. So obviously our deed restrictions, our covenants don't cover this, because we were there before Airbnb. But I think the big issue, a lot of it, is because now our neighborhood is well known to like 100 people of a questionable character. And where I live, whenever somebody comes to visit us for the first time, they're like, oh, I never knew this was here. Well, now a lot of people know it's there. And so I've done some research on that, and the research shows that crime increases with the Airbnbs. There have been 5 cities in California that have banned them altogether. New York City bans them. And so I feel like, we're on the cutting edge here. It's time to do something about it. I was very shocked that there was not really anything in place that I felt like protected us out in the county. So the other thing that concerned us, like the law enforcement, they were great and they responded, but there were lots of them. I don't know, somebody else could tell me, maybe 8 or 10. I've seen a picture. And I think even Georgetown Police came. So that left the county basically, all your law enforcement was at our neighborhood. So I think that's a danger for the entire county. So those are just some of our concerns, and we have kids that could have been coming home from dates, they couldn't have gotten through, and parents have told me they were up all night. Their kids were asleep in the, bedroom that faced that house, and I'm not a gun expert, but I think I would be a little worried about an AK-47, if I was going to sleep. So we were very concerned, and we wanted some input on some suggestions about, because we feel like our area is different from others for a couple of reasons. One, we're a cul-de-sac. So I would like to see that addressed in zoning, or regulations or ordinances, because you put everybody in that neighborhood in danger if one house prevents access. We're also on a lagoon system, which was established before Airbnbs. That was probably designed. There are 19 houses now. There's room for 2 more. So we're concerned about that. And if something would go wrong, then all that, if we had to put money up, that it would be equally distributed among all of our households, for a problem that really we had no control over. So if I were writing some, and I would volunteer to be on a committee if you wanted to do that, I would say no Airbnbs on a cul-de-sac or a dead-end street. I think that people should have to advertise if they're going to make their house be an Airbnb for like 30 to 60 days. And people should be able to talk about that. I'm a capitalist, I'm free enterprise, I'm all this stuff, but boy, did I have, changed some things here. And there needs to be a cash bond up, because if there was no recourse that we could find if something had happened, like who do you go to? The landowners were out of the country, I think. Somebody will correct me and the management property were not going to answer the phone at 2:30 a.m. So basically we were all on our own until, that happened. And I think, when you do write these, that there needs to be like a penalty, there needs to be some kind of restrictions that has a bite to it if these are not followed. And I'm going to be really daring here and say I think there needs to be a moratorium on new Airbnbs until something comes up. We've kind of all talked and said this wasn't a red flag. This was way more serious than a red flag. It was like a warning shot, that something needs to be done and something needs to be done now. And it's named Ridgeview Oasis, and that says a safe place in a wasteland. And I'm like, that's not very appropriately named, because we're not a wasteland. And their place is not, that little oasis. And we probably all think of our homes as our own oasis, but that wasn't the case.
Do you all have an HOA?
We have met, and we have the, it's in our deed and covenants. We don't have really what I would say. Would you say an active HOA?
Last I heard, it's not active.
I just wanted to Chad.
I had a few questions. So I'm trying to wrap my mind around all this, and
we still are. We still are. We put up security cameras for the first time ever.
And so to set this up a little bit, so you're saying the owners don't live here, they don't live in the country, or they're not in Georgetown. I got you. But they're an Airbnb essentially, and they have some property management company. Yes. And you all had an issue that happened out there, obviously, that put everybody in danger. What laws that we already have on the books, like as far as for safety and all that stuff, I know there were laws that were being broken, right?
They arrested somebody on an outstanding warrant. That's
right. But those laws are already put in place. What are you suggesting that we need to add as far as with the existing ordinances that we have for short-term rentals?
Well, when I talked to Red at Planning and Zoning, he couldn't tell me. We're agriculture, residential, A1. So from what we could tell, we didn't really have anything. I mean, I guess there are laws, like for the state, like if you're, I don't know, but you can't do anything with 100 people. There's not enough room in Scott County Jail to put them in there.
Now, I understand that, but if there's too many people at a house, then the police can send people out. Or
first of all, the noise ordinance is an issue.
Noise ordinance out in the county.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do.
That's what the sheriff
Well, Chief Nettles is right behind you, and Cam here. There is a noise ordinance.
Yeah.
Well, there's also no heroin.
But that's not like something like this. You can't predict. But what can we put into place to maybe, hopefully, minimize the chance of it happening again? That's while we're all talking about it.
I
And-
think I kind of said some things that we thought could, number one, there should not be an Airbnb. If you're in a cul-de-sac and there's 19 homes, you're putting everybody at risk.
Well, no, maybe the Airbnb, and look, I'm trying to look at this from both sides, and I don't like putting things in place and ordinances that we're not going to use. You see what I'm saying? So I want to make sure that it is effective. And I want to make sure that it's fair to the people who have Airbnbs and they are doing a good job and they're not issues because they're registered.
Well, they wouldn't be bothered. This wouldn't affect them.
But if there was part of the ordinance that said if there's 6 bedrooms, then you can have
12 people. is
12
what it
people
says.
plus 2 because of fold-out couch. I've heard that in other, but what teeth does that really have, and who's going to enforce it?
It doesn't.
That-
And
I
that's
agree
what
with
we're
you.
saying, that it doesn't have it.
Please know, we hear you, and we want to try to help.
I'm very passionate about this. I'm sorry, I'm like, whoa, but like I said, it's a neighborhood where we know everybody, and nobody ever anticipated this would happen. And I don't know if I'm feeling like, it's profits over people or freedom of one person, over the good of one person for all, and against us. So I think we just have uncharted territory here, and that's why I said, we need to figure out something to do. But it was people, I was further away from it, but the people that were right next door are still, what should I say? I'm not going to say shell-shocked because I'm not going to speak for them, but it's on their mind. When you go to bed at night and you have a child in a bedroom facing that, and we know several people in the sheriff's department, they were understaffed and could not have searched everybody. There were only 10 of them, I think, and 100 people. So they did great, and they came every time we called them, but this is kind of like a party house. They've been rented out to a sorority, like a bridal party, a birthday party. It's never.
That was going to be my question. Was this just an isolated incident, or has this happened a lot?
This was but this was one event that you were talking.
They're always on the road. Like, we have a very narrow road. They're always parking on the road so that we can't get around them.
But have the police been called at any other?
No, we've just been dealing with it, to be clear.
Is there no parking on one side of the road? Like, are there no parking on?
Not in our covenant, not in our deed.
Neighborhood is, it's not like.
We're very rural. We're like 6 miles out. You all may know, it used to be Bogey Buster's Golf Course, Coleridge Golf Course. We're out
could
there.
we maybe make one side of the road, no parking this side of the road?
But still private road. Coleridge Lane is.
So it's a private road.
And then Ridgeview becomes private.
So we wouldn't have any.
But you'll have, to me, I think you'll have some of the power. Like, you could get your HOA, you could get it active, and you all can put restrictions. I have about 8 HOAs that I deal with, and I deal with these issues. And there'll be restrictions on there that says they don't rent a house if somebody rents a house. Well, that's not the fiscal court to know that's not our responsibility of who rents out a house. But the HOAs will get involved, and they will say, hey, you're violating the restriction, and we're going to put a lien on your property. And on a private street, essentially, the owner of the street is the developer, and unless they turn it over to the property owners, then you can make all sides no parking. You know what I'm saying?
No street parking at all.
I'm trying to give you all the power.
Well, we didn't feel like we had the power because of the drugs and the guns and the prostitution. So we were trying to do things the right way. So my very first phone call was to Red at Planning and Zoning, because I'm a rule follower to a certain extent. So I started there and, called Kelly and, talked to the homeowners here. So we kind of were thinking, well, I don't think we can just all of a sudden make new covenants or, deeds and restrictions. Maybe, I didn't know we had that much power. It's like.
So Cam is our county attorney, and Cam can an HOA enact?
Yeah, you can, you already have one?
And it's in escrow? So you bring it out of escrow?
Yeah, I mean, you can always amend your restrictive covenants by probably a majority of the lot owners there and make them stronger and have more penalties and all that kind of stuff.
Would this house be grandfathered in though already? I mean, I'm just, I don't
Yeah,
know.
that was our concern. It's like, well, great.
Well,
Now,
I mean,
they are
you need
selling
to-
the house. They've told us they are putting the house up for sale. But it's
So
like,
it's now's the time to do it then.
Before they sell it.
I mean, you'd want to talk to an attorney that specializes in HOA stuff, but I mean, I know enough to be dangerous, I guess, but you know, you could amend them and you can put harsher penalties in. I think it's usually just done by a majority of the lot owners. So you'd have to amend them pursuant to however the existing restrictive covenants say you amend them and go through that proper procedure, but you could put more teeth in place there. Just have to get together and do it.
And Jared Holland's behind you, and Jared is deputy judge, and he's done some research for us after Kelly brought this up, and you brought up about the lagoon. Public health has some, they have some ability to maybe have an impact with if there's too many occupants for what's rated as the
sanitary system.
for the sanitary system. So that's something we can look at as well.
Dr. Miller to fine tune that, but I know for a fact there's too many people in that sanitary system, so right away you could ask quite a few people to leave just because it's in violation of the sanitary system.
So I would,
That gets tricky though.
Yeah.
If you want to have a birthday party, then somebody can call and be like, hey, you have too many people at your house. You gotta be very.
it's so,
Start drawing
That's
out.
pretty obvious.
You know.
it's just a tough situation.
Yeah.
We want to help, and we're looking at it, and we're glad you're here because we want to hear from you and anyone else. But let us try to. I would ask you to send us an email if you haven't done so already, or share, like what you have put on paper, so we can distribute that. And then Cam will help us navigate, and Rhett as well, and because we want to do what's best for everybody, and we don't want a nuisance or unsafe thing, but there is, if it's, like you said, free enterprise and capitalism, but how do you put some structures in there to protect neighbors? That's the catch.
Have you all reached out, Roy Cornett, we talked about this the last time, he had an Airbnb, he's on our tourism board, and he referenced that, you can contact Airbnb or VRBO or whoever the deal is. Have you?
I have done that, there's multiple neighbors have done that.
Yeah.
And
To get them off the platform?
They do not get back to you, you never get a call back from them. I mean, you could have, they say that they do, if you have issues with a house, then you'll so I said after that, anytime we have an issue, we need
Yeah.
to report it to them. But they're a profit business, and
Right.
they don't have any, they don't care about Georgetown.
So you're getting no communication from
We get no
VRBO?
communication.
Gotcha.
And multiple people reached out to Airbnb.
So-
Because that was I was like, let's just get it taken off their platform.
Right, yeah.
Because they have a thing on there that they don't want to allow. They also agree they don't want to allow a party house. Well, this house is nothing but a party house.
It has an
rent
indoor
for
pool.
$1,200 a night. One family is going to go to this house and stay there. I've been to Airbnbs with my family. You go in, you stay there, you enjoy yourself, and leave. Everyone that comes there, it's either a family reunion, it's like she said, it's a bachelor party, it's this particular thing got way out of control, but it's not just a family of four coming to hang out for the weekend.
Gotcha.
It's a huge house, and it rents for a lot of money.
and she lives next door to the house, so I'm
always
behind
people
it.
coming and going, and
So Chief Nettles, so it sounds like, because I've not had, I've heard of other issues with Airbnbs, but not a mass amount of just complaints. There's been here or there. Chief Nettles, can you speak to, other than the one, what I understand what you shared with me, that there's this 100 people that showed up shooting some crazy video.
Correct.
And it was drugs and alcohol and guns and
there were
just.
still drugs 3 days later when the cleaners came in.
But other than this, has there been any other issues?
I can think of one other instance, and it was a couple years ago.
Like one other instance?
One thing I can recommend is, one thing that was done at Winter Circle Motel several years ago, they quit renting to local people. You had to be from out of town to rent. A lot of these issues that you have in these Airbnbs, I think probably those people from Lexington.
Yeah, and that's.
The other instance I'll talk about, they were local as well. I don't know if there's something about, you have to live out of state or a certain mileage away to rent one of these locations.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to share this data. We'll share what you have at our work session the first Friday in August. We'll have continued conversation. I'm sure Kelly will share with you all. We want to help, but and then Cam Culbertson,
Just gonna
please.
add one quick thing, because while we're talking, you all have restrictive covenants of record, and I
have a copy of those
yeah.
too, to give to
And
Kelly.
it says, in paragraph 20, I think?
Yes, that was the
No
one we knew that
immoral,
was.
it says immortal, but that's a typo.
Immortal.
No immoral, improper,
There was no
unlawful,
moral
obnoxious,
behavior.
or offense shall be made or carried on in any building or upon any lot, or shall anything be done on any building or upon any lot which may be or which may become an annoyance or nuisance to the public or any other owner. And thereafter it says, on 25, it says, each and all of the above covenants and restrictions shall be enforceable by injunction or other appropriate legal action available to developers or any one of them, the owner of any lot, Ridgeview Estates, HOA. So that gives you all the teeth to file legal action against these folks. It's in the restrictions.
Maybe we should have hired an attorney right away, then, shouldn't we?
It's not too late to do that. I mean, I'm saying you have that option.
I'm kind of like, I don't want other people. And so if you all are starting to develop, more ordinances for the county, that's one of the reasons why I'm here is like, I don't want anybody else to have to go through it. So when you're doing these, starting to develop them, they need to be pretty restrictive. Because somebody else could go through this and we might not be so lucky. And I told Kelly, not being dramatic at all, but I said, we don't want to be in the Kentucky Legislative Assembly making a law that gets the name of somebody that got killed because of an Airbnb. We don't want to be doing that, but that could happen.
But, and I don't disagree with you, but it's finding the balance of how do we protect our community, but at the same time, not restrict a person's right to. And maybe when there's two strikes and you violated terms or there's been calls to the police, then you lose your right to have short-term rentals. I don't know if that's possible.
But
please
that's
know
something you all should look into when you're
please know
writing
that your
these.
concerns are not falling on deaf ears. And Kelly brought it. We immediately started talking, and we'll continue to try to hammer out what we can do.
I appreciate that. I told Kelly, I said, the next government election, the next time we have somebody running for governor, you're getting a vote. I'm like writing you in.
Campaign 2024. Kelly Corman. Hey, we appreciate everybody being here on this, and we'll continue the conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Can I get
Anyone else want to speak to that? I will move forward then with Hall of Justice Special Inspections. Ben is here. Thank you for your patience, Ben.
Yes, sir.
This is an agreement, and Ben, would you share just a little about the three agreements? And
so, first off, start off with
It's two.
special inspections. It is a requirement by the state building code to have a third party come in and do special inspections. They come in and do things like testing the concrete, make sure that it's setting and curing correctly. They test shutters, they test all kinds of things. So this is a requirement for pretty much every single project that goes through.
and you all are recommending L.E. Gregg at $129,570. The court is not paying this. The PDB is paying this. All we're doing is approving the agreement because Branstad Carroll couldn't be the body approving the agreement.
Correct.
And eventually we will be the owner or the holder of the deed AOC and the state legislature pays the debt service, as you all know, so. Anything else you want to add to that? So L.E. Gregg at 129,570, and then Facility Commissioning Group. And essentially what the commissioning group will do is they will test the mechanics of all the systems in the building, HVAC, lighting, security, not security.
No. It's primarily just mechanics and lighting. There was a request by the AOC to do what's called a blower door test, which is a test to basically just see how tight your building actually is for looking for air leakage, and that is also included in their scope.
And that recommendations Facility Commissioning Group at $40,845, and these are all professional services, and it's been approved by the PDB. The AOC wanted us to approve it as well. Would there
Judge, do they need to be taken separately?
I couldn't hear you, David.
Do they need to be taken separate?
I think we can do them together.
I'll make a motion.
Motion. Thank you, Mr. Livingston.
Isn't there one more?
There's just the two. He initially said three, but we only have to do two.
We can only have to do two. So a second from Ryan Pratt. Any other questions or comments?
Judge, this is the third building we've had special inspections for. Do we need to, this need to be part of the budget when moving forward with?
It'll always be part of the budget on projects.
Yeah, I mean, that's,
yeah,
gotcha.
But we're not paying, this. So we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion approved. Thank you, Ben, and your patience. Ben's been fantastic. Ben's been very involved. So that leads us to code enforcement, county abatement on a property on Lyle Road, and this is a ratification. I shared with you all, and very tough situation out there on Lyle Road. House caught on fire, and the house we've been having discussions about the issues, and tell me your name and
Yes, sir. My name is Carolyn Kenton. I'm an attorney. I am actually the attorney of record in the Murphy Brutansky estate.
Okay.
And
well, welcome.
I'm sorry?
Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We have been attempting to settle this estate for some months now, and the operations of the code enforcement are impeding our efforts to do this. And I would ask...
How is that?
Well, in the first place, since this was a property that was in testacy, we had to file a affidavit of descent for this property, and since it was owned by two brothers, we had to ask the court for to begin with, when the estate was open, both brothers were appointed as the personal representatives of the estate. One of the brothers lived on the property, and I think he's the one that has created this problem as far as the abatement situation was concerned. My client, who was the other brother, was not aware of this problem because all of the notifications were coming to the address itself, which were not shared with him. And so he only got re-involved in what was going on within the last 8 months. And when he realized what was happening, we petitioned the court to remove the co-personal representative so that my client would have the sole authority to sell the property, which we then had to go to court and ask the court's permission to sell the property. And of course, you have to give a 30-day notice to the person who is being asked to suspend their rights for the sale, and that took place early in July, and then it has to wait another 30 days before the sale of the property can go through. And we had someone who had made a bid on the property, and all of a sudden, the week before we went, or the 10 days, or even less than that, the weekend before we were to go to court, get the final approval for the sale of the property, by golly, the house burned down. And we are of the opinion that it was an arson that created the problem with the house. Code enforcement has come in and has removed vehicles that we were prepared to remove the next day without notifying us that that was what they were going to do. As a matter of fact, code enforcement has never notified me at any time that they were going to take action on this property, and as the attorney for this estate, I think it would have been appropriate for me to have been notified if they could not have notified anybody else. That said,
Did code enforcement know that you were the attorney for the estate?
all they have to do is go to the court and look up the estate.
Ma'am, how long did you know that this was going on?
I'm sorry?
How long have you known about all this going on?
Since the first of the year.
Why am I hearing from you for the first time right now?
I'm sorry?
Why am I hearing from you from the first time right now? I mean, you could have contacted us months ago, and we could have been talking about this for, you know what I'm saying? Like,
The county attorney.
yeah, like,
Where was the proceedings?
we're happy to work with people and would very much rather they clean this up themselves rather than get to this point.
My client has contacted you on several
He
occasions.
contacted me for the first time, like, either yesterday or the day before. That's the first time I've ever heard from him.
He has also contacted the code enforcement people. They have been in contact for several occasions. He's called the police to have people removed from the property who were not appropriate to be there.
So what is your request?
My request is that they at least suspend operations until we can clean up this situation. We have a insurance adjuster who is trying to, there was insurance on the house, and the insurance adjuster has been trying to do an investigation of this fire, and code enforcement has evidently come and started to remove the debris from the property.
Because the impending danger of, like, that was the second time it caught on fire.
I understand that, Your Honor.
And our staff, I mean, dangerous situation and very, very, very tough. And we felt like we needed to move forward in getting this place cleaned up. That site has a long history of.
I understand what your situation is because I've seen the photographs of the property.
So let me ask you this: what is the difference? And we're going to ratify. The goal tonight was to ratify an agreement to have it cleaned up, and it's, in my opinion, has to be cleaned up.
We have no problem with that, Your Honor.
But your client has not cleaned the place up.
He hasn't had,
and that's not the fault of the court. That's his fault, in my opinion. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Has the abatement already happened?
It started, and the first thing they did, there was like burned out motorcycles and vehicles. I mean, it was disaster. If I had to live by that, it would be. It's just a very tough situation. And in my opinion, the insurance is not going to get it cleaned up any cheaper. No matter what, it has to be cleaned up. I mean, it is. Have you been on site?
I've not been on site.
You have not been on site, and you're the attorney. I mean, it is terrible.
I am perfectly aware of what the condition is. I have seen the photographs of the property.
My opinion, yes, sir.
Ma'am, how long would the insurance company need to do their investigation?
How long would they need to do their investigation, insurance company?
I do not know, but I will inform the court of that.
Ma'am, are you aware that there has been multiple liens on this property?
I'm perfectly aware that
multiple years, not 2024, but we've had them previously before then.
Right.
So you know that this has been an ongoing issue, not just here as of recent.
I'm perfectly aware that the air that was living on the property created the problem. And my client was living in Lexington and did not know what was going on at the time.
But that's not the court's fault, and it's not the fault of the
I'm
community.
not saying that it's the court's fault.
Back to
I'm just
Mr.
saying that
Livingston.
we need to, if they would just pause long enough for us to be able to.
So what would be reasonable?
The question is, how quick can that happen, ma'am?
I'm sorry?
How quick can that happen?
If we press pause, how quick can that process happen?
I would say within the month we can have it done.
I don't know.
I have a question though. Like, why do you all care if we abate it? Like, if we clean it up? Like, why do you all care? Like, what is that hurting you
Well,
all?
When code enforcement came in, they removed a car that was licensed in the name of the estate, and that my client was trying to get a new title for because it had been burned up in the house, so that he could move the car out of that property and retitle it in the name of one of the beneficiaries.
I mean, I don't
Code enforcement picked up a motorcycle that my client owned. It did not belong to the estate, and he actually had somebody coming the next day to pick up those vehicles.
Ma'am, those vehicles have been there for months, and for your client to present, oh, we're gonna get it the next day after it burns down, it's just hard for me to.
They already had the
And that might be the
arrangement
case,
with the
Would
tow
the
company
court-
to come and get it.
Would the court be opposed to a 1-week pause? I mean,
David, can you hear me? Do you think 1 week is long enough for an insurance adjuster to do what they need to do? David's in the insurance business.
where do you go?
I don't know if you can hear me.
So, but back to this question. So we get this adjustment, adjusters, I mean, what does he actually?
He's going to, the house was insured, and so they're going to evaluate how much they're going to pay to replace the house, which would be money in the estate.
Why haven't they been there already?
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Why have they not been out there?
already? Why do they need another week? Why haven't they been there already? The house burnt down several weeks ago. Why haven't they been there already?
What was the date of the fire, John? Chief?
If you can't find it, I probably can.
Oh, he's got it.
I can find it.
July 9th. And we're sitting here today at the 25th. So, I mean, it is a week enough time? David?
I think it was the 8th, for what it's worth.
All right. David, is a week long enough? 2 weeks?
That's fine.
So,
I mean, that's fine. Is that present a safety issue to the community? I guess I'm kind of asking you, John, or I know you're not with code enforcement, but you're familiar with the.
The
Now.
big issue that our big concern is, homeless people going in there and, doing whatever they do, and if the thing catches on fire again, that structure is in such a situation that we can't go in there and get somebody because it puts a great risk on our people.
What's our liability if we suspend it for a week, 2 weeks, and somebody goes in there and gets hurt?
great question. I mean,
We really can't understand.
David, you're breaking up bad.
Ma'am, on the deed, I see there's a Murphy Ball, and then there is a Murphy Burkansky. That's right.
Murphy Burkansky is the owner of the property.
Okay.
Or it was the estate that is the owner of the property, and the property title has been changed to the two heirs at law.
Okay, but based on our records, there's no forwarding address, there's no other address in the PVA records for these people. So when there is a notice that is served, it's going to be served to 829 Lyle Road, not somewhere else, because there's nothing in our records that says send it to someone else in Lexington. And so I would insist that you give that information to the county so that they can have that contact information. If you say that we're not getting their correspondence, we can correct that today.
And code enforcement can share a lot, like there's a file out there of the citations and the process and all the
Yeah.
communication. Cam's reviewed that. But what David shared via text, because his audio is not working great, is I don't believe it would be a liability to us. We don't own it and the property is insured. That's what David wanted to communicate. Back to you,
Yeah, I mean,
Cam.
I don't know. Yeah, I guess my initial frustration is, but we'll move forward. But it seems like we could have had this conversation
Yeah,
a month or 2 or 3 months ago and not had to come to all this drama. But yeah, if you think y'all can get it cleaned up and press pause.
But here's the issue, like, so the low bid to clean the whole mess up is $28,300. I mean, did your client, I mean, there is no evidence that we have, and there's no evidence that we have that your client's gonna clean it up, period. And what's proposed is cleaning it up, clearing it. It'll be, grass seed and straw will be put on it, everything will be removed. And then there is a long list of liens, and
I understand that.
And then our
Now,
conversation was
are those liens mortgages against the property?
no liens for abatements.
Code enforcement liens.
Is it
And
filed
then
in
I
the,
also believe there's
is it filed in the
property tax.
clerk's records?
Yes.
Okay, that's what my assumption was. But we have a bid for that property. And
you have a bid to clean it up,
we have a bid for the sale of the property.
but
And
it-
the money received from the sale of the property will cover the cost of the liens.
I mean, we're all for that.
but it's still going to have to be cleaned up.
I understand that.
So I still don't understand why not moving forward with the cleanup.
The only reason that we need to have an abatement in the activities of this situation is that we need to have the insurance adjuster be able to evaluate the destruction of the house.
Do you know when the
The
insurance
structure of the house, there is no house. I mean, there's a detached garage that remains standing, but there is no house, ma'am.
I understand, but he has to do his investigation in order to put a price as to what he will replace, what the insurance will cover.
do you know when he's going to the property?
I'm sorry?
Do you know when he's going? He, she, the insurance adjuster. Do you know, are they scheduled to go?
I can find that out. I do not know it at this moment.
The other thing is, we have pictures of the property right now, and there's no difference of him having those pictures than him going out there and taking pictures himself. I really do not believe we should put pause.
I don't either.
And the reason being is there is a long list of citations and a long record. And this place has to be cleaned up. I don't believe anybody's going to get it cleaned up for less than 28.3. We took 3 bids. That's the low bid. It has to be cleaned up. And then whatever bid you have for it, your client can do what he wants. I might wait and take more bids after it's cleaned up and strawed out. It might be you might get a bigger price on it. But I am not willing. I will not vote to support pushing pause.
I won't either, and I don't think it's fair to the neighbors that are out there either. They've put up with this long enough, and I don't think we should wait any longer. We've already started
If we
it.
don't pause, do we have a timeline of when they would start?
It's not.
And he's done. He's not. I mean, he's removed some.
Expecting this money from us.
No, 100%. But he has not completed the work yet. I mean, we could push pause, but
But no,
I still don't think we should.
So they've
push
already
pause.
started.
But I mean, they've already started cleaning?
They've already started. It's minimal, but they have already started.
Okay.
Could he wait till Monday?
Yeah, I mean, if that's what y'all want to do, I'm one vote. But you've not even been to the property, and there is no house there. I mean, there is no house. I mean,
understand that.
And this is the thing, if the house burnt down 3 weeks ago, why hasn't the adjuster been here in 3 weeks to make?
I think the adjuster has already been there, and he's the one that was concerned that code enforcement had already degraded the assessment that he needed to make as far as the house is concerned.
Ma'am, we can share.
So just to be clear, the adjuster has been there already?
Yes.
There is no reason to pause.
So I thought you wanted us to pause so they could come. Now I'm confused.
My client would have been here tonight, but he has contracted COVID, so he didn't want to infect the rest of you and has stayed at home. He has informed me that the adjuster told him that he had was upset because he had seen the actions of the code enforcement as far as the property was concerned and could not, but was having a difficult time making an opinion as to what the cost of replacement would be.
I'm with you that the adjuster's upset, but the adjuster's been there and done everything they need to do, so now I'm confused why we would pause if they've been there.
No, the abatement didn't start till, like the first of the week, of this week. I mean,
My client, all the paperwork in that house, including the title to the car and the insurance policy, were burned up in the house. And so it took him a little while to determine that there was actually insurance on the house.
Well, ma'am, I respect and understand and have heard your requests, but for the safety, for just the general process, I cannot take a vote to pause. I mean,
I agree. I
mean,
mean,
the adjuster's already been there.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Is there a motion?
Yes, I'm ready.
To accept and ratify the low bid from all year round at 28.3?
Yes, sir.
There's a motion on the floor. Second. Any other question or comment? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Airport Board joint appointment. I shared this, and as I said in my email, I thought I had pressed send earlier, and I had not. I apologize. But Paula Moran is a recommended appointment, and Paula, I shared her resume, long history in finance and banking here in the community, very active community servant, award recognized by several civic organizations, awards for public service and community service. And Steve Woodrum, our airport board chair, would like to recommend her. Mayor Jenkins, Paula Moran. Mayor Jenkins has met with her and also wants to recommend her. And then I did a phone conference with her this morning, found her to be, very engaging, and I think she would do a good job. I will say that we have some legacy other applications, and at the end of this year, it is my understanding that there will be 2 other board positions open.
Who's this person replacing?
This person would be replacing Jason Stone, who had moved out of state.
So this would
We
be
just put him on there.
Yeah, so this
So he-
term would end 12/31/27.
Yeah, so what questions or comments does anyone have?
I'll make a comment. I've known her for a long time, Paul, in banking, and I think she's a really good person, make a good board member out there. So I'd make a motion to accept her.
Second.
But also, are all the appointments joint appointments?
On the airport board?
I don't know.
It says they all are.
Okay. She says they all are.
I know this one is, because you had that in the email. Okay.
So they all show up in her record as joint. So we have a motion and we second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Fire department bid on these doors. And I'm so glad this will close out the door project. And this is a big thing. Like having insulated doors, we're going to save on electricity and also on maintenance.
Correct, yes. So we, thank you all. We advertised, put out the bid for, basically it's going to be 6 bay doors, the 4 remaining doors at Station 1, and then the 2 doors at the Sadieville Fire Station, Station 2. So we put those out for bid, advertised it. We only got 1 bid, and actually the bid was from McCormick in an amount of $106,450. And they are the same ones that installed the last group of doors that we got.
So is
You've been happy with those?
We only received the 1 bid, so it'd be our recommendation to go.
How were they?
Yeah, were you happy with those doors?
They were good. I mean, there's some tweaks that they're still doing them on, because those bay doors were actually the first doors, I guess, that type style of door, so there's some tweaking in the programming, but it's been fine. They've came back and fixed whatever issues we've
So
had.
are
So we,
is that everything included? Demolition, taking out the existing,
yeah,
installing,
yeah.
providing them? Is
Yeah.
it, I'm assuming they're electrical and they're doing all of that. Is that all?
Yeah, that's everything. That's the doors, the motors, yeah, everything. And removal of old doors,
And they'll hook them up,
and they hook them up, yeah.
turn them on.
Motion?
Second.
Second. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you all.
A lot of things still going. How's the training crew? Marching forward?
Oh, yeah, yeah, they're doing real good. Got 6 good ones. I mean, they're,
I was gonna ask if you still had all 6.
they still got all 6. So.
Mark Bennett hadn't ran them out the door?
Not yet.
All right.
Not yet.
Now, the next thing in new business is consideration of, Stacy sent it out, Michelle's been working hard on it. The lease agreement, Stacy shared that by email. I couldn't hear you.
Just resolution.
It's just a resolution, so,
Speed read it.
speed read it.
Yeah, all right. Form of resolution, resolution 2420, a resolution approving a lease for the financing of a project, providing for the payment and security of the lease, authorizing the execution of various documents related to such lease, and making certain designations regarding such lease. Whereas the governing body of the County of Scott, Kentucky, or the lessee, has the power pursuant to section 65.940 et sec of the Kentucky Revised Statutes to enter into lease agreements with or without the option to purchase in order to provide for the use of the property for public purposes. Whereas the governing body of the lessee, the governing body has previously determined and hereby further determines that the lessee is in need of the project as defined in the lease hereafter described. And whereas the governing body has determined and hereby determines that it is in the best interest of the lessee that the lessee enter into a lease agreement, the lease, to be administered by the Kentucky Association of Counties Leasing Trust, the program administrator, and funded by the bank or financial institution offering the lowest and best interest rate as selected by the lessee, lessor, or the leasing by the lessee from the lessor of the project. Now therefore be it resolved by the Fiscal Court of the County of Scott, Kentucky as follows. Section 1, recitals and authorization. The lessee is hereby approves the lease agreement and all collateral documents to the extent defined and identified in the lease, each in substantially the form presented to this governing body. It is hereby found and determined that the project identified in the lease is public property to be used for public purposes. It is further determined that it is necessary and desirable and in the best interest of the lessee to enter into the lease for the purposes therein specified, and the execution and delivery of the lease and all representations, certifications, and other matters contained in the closing memorandum with respect to the lease, or as may be required by the lessor prior to the delivery of the lease, and hereby approved, ratified, and confirmed. The judge, executive, and fiscal court of the lessee are hereby authorized to execute the lease, together with such other agreements or certifications which may be necessary to accomplish the transaction contemplated by the lease. Section 2, administration of the lease. The Kentucky Association of Counties Leasing Trust is hereby acknowledged to be the program administrator under the lease. Section 3, severability. If any section, paragraph, or provision of this resolution shall be held to be invalid or unenforceable for any reason, the invalidity or unenforceability of such section, paragraph, or provision shall not affect any of the remaining provisions of this resolution. Section 4, open meetings law. This governing body hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the adoption of this resolution were taken in an open meeting of this governing body, and that all deliberations of this governing body and of its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action were in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements. Section 5, conflicts. All ordinances, resolutions, orders, or parts thereof in conflict with the provisions of this resolutions are, to the extent of such conflict, hereby repealed, and the provisions of this resolution shall prevail and be given effect. Section 6, effective date. This resolution shall take effect from and after its passage and publication of a summary thereof as provided by law. Introduced, seconded, and adopted today.
Questions or comments? And they made that really wordy.
They sure did.
Would there be a motion to accept or approve? Motion from Mr. Wallace, second from Mr. Jones. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. That leads me to Mr. Hostetler. I know you have some new business that you would like to share with the court.
I do is a brief introduction. I have a friend that's asked to come and speak to the court. I'll let him make that presentation, but I wanted to share first how we met. And I'm trying to condense this.
What's his name?
It's, I'll let him introduce himself. It's Teddy Edenstrom. But we met through a process where Teddy is the first gentleman, to my knowledge, that has used the net device about a month ago now, and thereabouts. But we met because he had called Georgetown Medical, where he was a client. He had called them with a request. He needed help with taking care of his 2 young sons. And so they, because you guys know, I've shared before with the court that my wife volunteers down there on a regular basis for the last 1.5 years. And so they called her and asked if we'd been interested in trying to help him. So we were, and so we met Teddy a couple of months ago, maybe 3, I don't know the time frame, and began a relationship with him to try to help him. And then in that time frame, it wasn't long when the net device got FDA approval, as we're all aware of, and we partnered with the net device folks. And Teddy was, to my knowledge, the first gentleman to be treated about a month ago now. And in the process, he learned that through that partnership that we paid, because he basically told me when we shared the opportunity with him and how to make the connection and the phone call and the people to talk to get to go down and take the treatment if he qualified, he didn't have any money and he didn't know how to pay for it. But I shared with him the program, and so I'll leave it. He wanted to come and speak to the court.
Hey, Teddy, let me say welcome to you, and then, hey, kudos to you, brother, for having the courage to move, and I'd love to hear your story.
Teddy, will you spell your last name for me?
Okay, my full name is Theodore Jennings Edenstrom II. Please don't Google that. You might see some, you might see some pictures that you don't like. But anyway, so he was exactly right. So whenever I called, I had already been off illicit substances for about 3.5 years, but through the medical, through Georgetown Medical. But whenever I had talked to them, my kids had got dropped off to me at the Winter Circle. I was living at the Winter Circle, and there was no way I was going to maintain a job and have a 2- and 4-year-old with no child care assistance or anything like that. So I reached out to the only place that I had gained any substantial amount of recovery since I was 12 years old. So my 12th trip to the rehab at Georgetown Recovery Works, I decided to go through the methadone clinic because for some reason I couldn't get away from the needle, and I had 15 years in heroin use or more. But and I had died 17 times already. It was confirmed in 2021, I think it was. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. But anyway, I started when I was 12 years old from bad childhood with marijuana. I found out that I could be happy in them sad moments sitting at the Coleman House, man, on Fiscal Road in Lexington when all my friends was out with their family. But it progressed from there. And then I won't go into all that, but it's hard to maintain a job when you're dope sick. And so the only way you're going to get money to go and get a fix is to either commit a crime or sell it yourself. So, which is a crime in itself. So, I did a lot of time behind my drug use and all that, and it wasn't fun. It became a full-time job. When I met Rick and his wife, it was because Georgetown Medical, my case manager, she had saw that I was walking back and forth to View Tech every day from 3:30 in the morning to 3:30 in the afternoon and maintain a job. But she knew how close it was for me to, like, I was almost at my wit's end, because how am I going to take care of a 2 and a 4-year-old and then still be able to get back and forth to this job? And I just found myself, man, strung out on 120 milligrams a day of methadone on legal dope, you know. But I was thankful for that place, because that place gave me the foundation I needed to be able to get away from the illicit. But then I couldn't get away from the 120 milligrams of methadone. It would have took me a whole year to dose out. And I was tired of it. One day I was sitting in the winter circle, and I contracted Hep C through all this too, knowingly. I knew the woman had Hep C. It was the only rig around, or needle, so I used it. Knowing that's how sick it was. But anyway, so I contracted that, man. But through the treatment, I'm like on my 6th week of the treatment. It would make me throw up. So I would throw up my dose on the weekends when I had my kids, and then all my kids wanted to do was just love on me. But I was going through acute withdrawal, so I would push them off, and I'd be like, no, go play. One day, man, I was sitting there, I was like, man, that's not being a dad. You know, how come I can't get out of this winter circle? I couldn't get nobody to rent to me. They rent to me on the phone, but whenever they saw me, but whatever. I understand all that, but so I couldn't figure it out. And then I remembered that, I ain't trying to get religious or nothing, but in the Bible it says be of sober mind or whatever. And being on 120 milligrams of methadone, man, ain't no sober mind. So when he told me about the device, I had already exhausted every avenue. I've done Suboxone, turn around because they would give them to me. I'd turn around and sell them for dope, and then I couldn't stay off the dope long enough to do a Suboxone. So that never worked. But the maintenance through the methadone clinic did work. But anyway, I was just tired. I was tired of being on anything, being dependent on anything. So whenever he told me about the net device, I went. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. There's not like an amount of words that I could ever say to express my gratitude to you all for allowing me that opportunity. I wish like a whole lot more people would do it. But today I can actually be a dad, and it's actually fun. You know, I don't have to worry about being on another substance. I can help other people that are probably only going to listen to my story because of what I've been through. And it's all really because of that talk we had at Wendy's, and this device, and really, to be honest with you, I really thought it was snake oil. Really, I thought it was. There ain't no way some device is gonna help me when I had done everything else, and I thought I was just doomed. I was gonna stay in the methadone clinic forever, you know. But I went and I got off 100. Anybody that knows about methadone, I had been taking it religiously for 3.5, almost 4 years, every day. I had been taking 120 milligrams probably for about 9 months, every day. And I went there, I had 3 unopened doses, and I went there kind of sick a little bit because that's what they suggested. And when I got through, I went from 120 milligrams of methadone, and I didn't take it no more when I got there, so there wasn't a taper. But I got off of 120 milligrams of methadone in 5 days, with no diarrhea, no nausea, no bone aches. I sweated a lot, but that was about it. Within 20 minutes of that device, man, I was rocking in the chair. On day 5, I was shooting basketball, and like now it's been almost a month that I've done it, and it took me when I withdrawed off fentanyl, it took me 60 days before I even had a solid bowel movement, and about 38 days before I got up off Boone County floor. So methadone's way worse than that. So I shouldn't even be up here talking to you all. That's how remarkable this device is. I've talked to more people about it, and I wish more people would do it, but and they will. It's just I'm so thankful, and I wouldn't have this opportunity if it wasn't for you all. And you all didn't even know me. My own family ain't even done nothing like this for me. You know what I'm saying? So I just wanted to come here and just tell you all thanks. from the bottom of my heart, man, because it changed my life, and I got a 2 and a 4-year-old that's probably happy their dad's back in their life now. So
That's fantastic. And Rick shared a little bit, and he described what you said was like, Rick, the net device helped me get rid of the ball and chain of methadone.
It did.
And they helped with the withdrawal, helped with that, and like, thank you for having the courage to come and share, and hopefully others will do the same that you've done. We're going to keep promoting it, and you know, I know that you're working now, and yeah, I would encourage you to, you know, like the Isaiah House is a continued option.
I'm in it.
And
I
I
do
thought you
IOP
were.
at the-
I thought you were.
Yes, Your Honor. I do IOP at the Isaiah House.
That intense outpatient and some counseling.
Yes, because like I need that. There might come a time in my life where I need that accountability. I do a drug screen every week, there, and like I know how easy it is for anybody, well, me, to make that wrong decision, and just to have like whatever I can have in place that would help me keep from making that, like say if something bad was to happen in my life or whatever, because that's been my story. I know that I have to be accountable for what I'm doing, you know, but the biggest thing is like, I don't live my life for myself no more, man. There's like a lot of people out here that, like, drug addicts really ain't bad people, man. A lot of them really are just ate up with guilt, shame, and remorse for all the things that they've done, and they don't know how to get away from it. So they just numb the pain. You know what I'm saying? And then the numbness don't even work no more. Like I used to do shots of fentanyl knowing it would kill me unless I got up and started walking before I took the needle out. Like that's how bad it was. And then eventually, the first time I died, I got dizzy at first. But then you don't get dizzy no more. And then next thing you know, you just wake up by the grace of God, somebody's there to Narcan you. And then the last time Cincinnati found me behind somebody's house on Mitchell in the mud. And so walking wasn't even working no more. I don't even know how I got there. But like all hopelessness had disappeared. Like I lost my mom when I was 4 and I was abused by my dad. So I was state raised from 11 to 18. But I don't really want to go into all that because I know y'all ready to go home. But I'm just saying, like,
hey.
So thank you for that.
We're happy for you. We're pulling for you, and like, if we can help, let us know. Any questions
brother,
or comments?
You've done won the big battle. Little
Yes,
battles
sir.
don't amount to nothing no more. You hang in there.
Yes, sir.
I'm very proud of you.
Yes,
Very
sir.
proud.
Thank you. And I want to thank the police department because, like, one day I was walking from ViewTech and a police officer pulled up beside me. And even though I was on methadone, I didn't have no warrants for nothing. Man, I don't need no ride. But he was like, nah, man, you can sit up in the front seat. I still kept my backpack on and I was still ready to bounce or whatever, but just old behaviors. But whenever he dropped me off at the Winter Circle, he didn't even ask my name or nothing. And whenever I got out of the Winter Circle, he gave me a bag that had Narcan in it and a couple of cards, and it made me feel good because they gave me a chance to save somebody if I would have saw somebody. I didn't have no Narcan, but and then that card is probably the best thing that's happening now. It's if you use a loan, man, you can call a number and drop your address. And what they do is they call you back like 15 minutes later, and if you're unresponsive, they send somebody to you. And I mean, that's life saving. And
Georgetown Police Department.
Yes, and it was Georgetown Police Department. Actually, I got the guy's card in my wallet, but I'll show it to you if y'all want to see it. But
God bless you.
it gave, like, I'm used to the police, like, well, back whenever I was in the, like, police pick me up and take me to jail, like, and that was probably the best thing at the time. But what that does to an addict is that makes you have to go through the withdrawals on the floor, and majority of all them people in jail is sitting there glorifying the drugs anyway. So you're not getting any real help with it. All you're doing is going through all that withdrawal, hoping that somebody in there comes in there with something, or after the withdrawal, all you hear about is how great it was to get high, or how great it was to live that life. So you're filled with all that same stuff. So whenever you get out, man, you go right back to it because you don't know no different. And a lot of them don't have no homes or anything like that to go to. So, but anyway, I ain't gonna take y'all's time.
Thank you for coming, and we're rooting for you every day, day by day. And we know it's a daily venture for you and journey. So God bless you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I don't have anything else after that. I'm not going to try to follow that. That's God's grace working, and I'm very thankful for the court having the vision and Rick's beating the drum of advocating for it. Any other business? If not, would there be a motion to adjourn?
Judge, can we adjourn in the memory of Judge Executive Charles Macy Tackett?
Absolutely.
Yeah, then I'll make that motion.
Second. Any other questions? All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.